Okay, all right. The public safety budget hearings is now in session. I guess first thing we have is Jen Swan with the overview of the process.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back for many, and welcome to the party, Bob.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so really quickly, I'm going to go through this overview once more. We have Bob with us today. He has not been in all week. So very, very quickly, inside your budget binders. The first half of the binder is the tentative budget. The tentative budget includes the operating budget, capital budget, and fiscal status tabs, or sections. The operating budget section includes the local share summary, which shows the activity for all funds and displays the tax levy, your property valuation, and tax rate for 2025, 2024, and the changes year over year. Your capital budget section includes the status of active capital projects, and it also presents a list of new projects that are proposed for 2025. Fiscal status section includes your fund balance and debt schedules. And your budget summaries and line item detail, those are behind the tentative budget. They're in order by organization number, hence the numbers that you see on those small tabs. And actually, on your agendas, each department has a number next to it. That number correlates with the number of the tab that you should flip to when that department is ready to do their presentation. Budget summary components consist of local share summary by department. You have your FTE or full-time equivalent summary, your summary by department at the classification level with comments. And during the budget hearings, these are primarily the exhibits that we're going to focus on. Your budget worksheet is at the line item detail level. This, and just a reminder to everybody too, that when you do propose changes, that it's at the classification level only, not a specific account. So when you do make changes, they're to your .2s, .4s, etc. In the front pocket of your books, there is a financial projection spreadsheet that Kitty has included from 2025 to 2029. This is an annual projection of appropriations, revenue, tax levy, tax cap, tax rate, and fund balance. Very quickly, overall highlights in the 2025 tentative budget, your FTEs are increasing 19.39 overall. Base pay includes percentage increases for managers and applicable increases from all collective bargaining units. There is also a 5% vacancy savings plugged in, much as we did with 2024. Again, throughout the year so far, we're still trending at about an average of 10%, so we still budgeted that conservatively, but that is plugged in with each department. And another reminder to know, all .8 accounts are a derivative of the .1s. So we really don't, we just want to make sure that nobody worries too much or spends too much time digging through the .8s, because those are really directly tied to your .1s and your positions that you have budgeted. Recommended format for the review hearings. Department head will lead the committee through his or her budget summary. You can refer to the budget by account detail as necessary, which you'll find again behind the summary for each department. And it's recommended that the committee vote on any desired amendments to send to audit and control either throughout the hearing or at the end of the day. It is further recommended that to the extent possible, the committee propose amendments to offset any increases to appropriations or decreases to revenue. And as the tentative budget was prepared, there were a couple of corrections or changes that were identified and new information that became available. So any departments that these changes may apply to will be pointed out by Kitty and myself during the course of presentations. And that's it.
Okay.
Any questions?
No?
You got it, Bob.
Okay. So
Thank
then,
you.
first up, we have the district attorney.
Good morning. How's everyone?
Hey, just state your name and your office that you represent for our viewers at home.
Sure, sure. Good morning, everyone. Jason Schmidt for the District Attorney's Office.
Madeline Conchaglia, Assistant to the District Attorney.
Sam Zafoto, Deputy Director of Finance, assigned to the DA's office.
Okay. Take it away.
Why don't we, Madeline, do you want to lead it? Or no, do we want Sam to? I know Jen indicated that the department head would lead this, but I'd rather have one of them. They're better with the numbers. I can explain the whys. Do we go for it?
Sure.
I mean, I can explain generally that we have asked for a much more dramatic increase than I've done in the last two budget processes that I've been a part of. We've asked for the addition of 2 assistant district attorneys and 2 paralegal positions. We've received some, for us, substantial monies from the state, which we've included to offset the increases, which then I think nets us out at about 7% increase to our budget, which, in the face of things is a good look for us, because I think from a raw data standpoint, we certainly are increasing our FTEs, but and I'm here to explain why, and I think it is very essential from a public safety standpoint.
Okay. Explain away.
Well, geez, where do I start? So I can really get through this, in a lot of different ways. We're really in a very different time than we all experienced a number of years ago, due to the implementation of a number of different changes in the laws that have impacted the prosecution of criminal actions across the state. The problem is that the infrastructure and the resources that are available to prosecutorial offices haven't really met with the legal obligations that have been imposed as a result of the changes in the laws. So what does that really mean? In effect, what happens is we have a number of different conditions that have created, in my personal view, a dysfunction in our local criminal justice system. We have a heavily resourced defense bar. Our public defender's office has been, they have approximately double the employees that we have, and they have a substantial support staff. When you combine that with the changes in the discovery laws, which imputes to the prosecutors all the investigative materials that are developed by our office, certainly, but every police agency that's within the New York State jurisdictions. It doesn't include federal agencies that we sometimes rely upon. But when that occurs, what the net effect of that is that you have the defense bar has now been awarded another line of attack against any criminal prosecution, whereas it used to be, I didn't do it, or I did it, but there are mitigating circumstances here. There's a justification or some type of a defense. I would say the prime objective of a good defense attorney now, and I used to do this, but that was before the changes in the law, is my client did it, but you're not going to be able to withstand the discovery obligations, and we're going to take every case to the mat, and we'll see what gets flushed out, because there's paper that you probably didn't disclose, you may not have even known existed, that your local police agencies will discover during the trial process, and that in turn will result in some type of a judicial sanction against our case, either compromising, and in many instances, too many to accept as tolerable, has crippled or actually killed our cases through the suppression of key evidence. Each and every time I've come before this group, I have made incremental changes, because all I'm doing is the same thing that each of you do in your private businesses. I'm looking at it, the resources that are available to us. What assets do I have? And I'm trying to reconfigure those assets to make it more efficient for county government. We have created part-time model positions to recruit ADAs, whereas the county had eliminated that. Not the most cost-effective way, but we needed bodies. We had created paralegal positions because I'm a big believer from my private practice that paralegals are essential. They are cheaper, in terms of FTE expenses for us, but they provide essential services that otherwise I would have to employ attorneys to perform. So we've increased the paralegals. We've brought in an operations assistant for the lower level clerical duties. We've tried everything that we can, but we're in a ER triage situation, and there are times that, if I use that as an analogy, where I may say to the anesthesiologist, your job is done, go help the surgeon because we got to get it done. And that's really what's happening. You know what happens as a result of that? I've even run afoul of our union here in the county because I've asked people like Madeline, can you pitch in and perform paralegal functions because we got to get this done. And that's been our lives for the last almost 4 years now. This year, I come before you very confident that if you give me what I'm asking for, I have at least the numbers that I should be able to deal with these automatic discovery rules that came into effect during COVID and we've had to deal with. The one thing I would say to you is that the laws, as we all recognize, laws say something. Sometimes they're not altogether clear because the people that draft them don't know exactly what's going on here. And then courts have to interpret them, and unfortunately, whereas we felt that our discovery obligations under the law amount to this, and for the record, maybe my hands are about 2 feet apart, it turns out as a result of the interpretation of the laws by our local court system, our obligations are more like this. And I would just add one more thing to the mix. To each and every one of you, you have constituents in your local jurisdictions. Well, guess what? Those local counterparts to you are not necessarily, they don't have a tax base where they can give our local police agencies monies. As a result, they in turn can't get us the documents because they don't have sufficient clerical staff to do the job. So we have been stepping in to help them out. It happens with every single police agency. Look what's going on in Dunkirk. Met with Dave Ortolano, because they're struggling, and we have a whole new way of doing business with them. We are very careful about who we subpoena for grand juries, such as today. We're very careful about who we subpoena for trials. Normally, we want to have a full, contingency just in case something occurs. Now we're making targeted subpoenas. We don't subpoena them early. We subpoena them closer to the time we're going to need them. We're performing their discovery work for them. They employ Dan Manzella on a part-time basis. That's not sufficient, but the city is struggling. Fredonia has their own problems. Ellicott has major problems. And when we had a discovery violation in a homicide case that was scheduled for trial in August, spent my summer preparing for this, guess what happened? Case almost got killed by our judge. Luckily, we beat that off, and we have that on the trial calendar for December. But when I spoke with the police and said, what is going on here? How do you suddenly have material that wasn't disclosed to us? Because we've been talking about this for the last 3.5 years. The answer I got was, hey, guess what? We don't have a clerical person. We don't have the money. So, you could yell and scream all you want, but we're all limited. So on a county level, we're trying to fill in the holes that on a local level we can't do. And I know you guys are doing that across the board. And it certainly applies in the case of, criminal justice and prosecuting the crimes that our local police are doing, For the Econo Lodge shooting, well, we had 3 prosecutors on scene because they don't have enough police that are experienced. Because how are they getting around budget issues? Well, would they hire a lot of part-timers, right? Because we can't afford full-timers with benefits. Well, the part-timers aren't as experienced. We're experiencing this across even Jamestown, which is very well, resourced. They rely upon us to fill in the gaps for them. Every single police agency, we are always providing services for them in order for them to give us the best possible case so that we can go to trial and cross the finish line so that your constituents can feel as if the system works, that if there's an arrest made, there's a conviction, and we are trying like mad to achieve that end goal. And it's hard. It's stymied by our judicial system. It's stymied by our legislators in Albany that changed the way we have to do business without giving us necessary funding for the proper infrastructure to complete the job. So I could just keep going on and on. One more example for you, and then you could just tell me to shut up. And this you'll appreciate this, Bob. You'll appreciate this. Well, you'll appreciate this. Everyone in this room will appreciate this example. Here's a great example of how this is trickling up for all of us. Take our Walmart thefts, right? We have Walmarts in the Lakewood Bustye jurisdiction, one in the Fredonia district. Well, there's petty larcenies all the time. You could have some college kid could steal nail polish. And just like you do in your individual businesses, you could look at what's present, you could look at the factors that are present, and you could make a quick determination as to where this should go. Well, we got a kid with no priors that just stole nail polish, and they're charged with petty larceny, a misdemeanor. Well, what do you think that the end result with that? Every single person that's part of that case, the judge, the defense attorney, the prosecutor understands that that's probably an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal or a reduction to a disorderly conduct. In no way, shape, or form do I think it's appropriate that we should tag a kid with a misdemeanor that's just going to go on in life that made a stupid mistake. That used to take about 2 minutes of time. You know, police charge it, we know where it goes, no priors, okay, I'll reduce it to an ACD or disorderly conduct. I spent a grand total of 2 minutes on this. Now, because we have a public defender's office that are so well resourced, and they are doing their job as they properly should, I'm not demonizing anybody, they say, no, we're not gonna take that offer. In fact, what I see is that there was surveillance footage from Walmart, get me that. There was, an assist from another police agency, get me that body cam. So we end up spending about 4 or 5 hours on a case that used to take us 2 minutes. Because we have no choice, and they're holding our feet to the fire because they see the disparity in the resources here. So now we're expending all these resources for a lousy petty larceny that we should have dispensed with very quickly, and that taxes us in other ways, you know? And these discovery violations, same thing. You know, we just achieved a 12-year conviction, I believe, on John Anzalone in Jamestown, okay? You know, that took us 2 rounds to get there because there was a discovery violation over something stupid that really had no substantive value to our case. And I'm not going to blame Jamestown PD for it. You know, it happens. This is just little things, but but it resulted in a mistrial that because our evidence was suppressed and we had to go through the entire process again. And what that means is I don't have enough resources to prepare for the next homicide trial. And I'm coming into about five trials this year already, and I've got 2 more. We've got Hattie Matar, the Salman Rushdie case that starts October 15th with jury selection, and I'm expecting that Ellicott homicide that was supposed to go in, you know, where I lost my summer, it was supposed to go in August. It's going to go in December, likely. It's going to be 1 or 2 on the December trial calendar. So we're constantly just overburdened and we're spinning our wheels, wasting a lot of resources because of these discovery rules that we can't seem to comply with because our police agencies are underfunded, we're under-resourced, we're all working together as one collective body. And going back to the emergency room analogy, I'm then saying to the anesthesiologist, go in there and help the surgeon. You know, I'm helping as well. All of us are all hands on deck, and we're not achieving the mission that you deserve, that your constituents deserve, and that's why we presented a budget with additional FTEs. Sorry that was so long. You should have asked an open-ended question.
Well, I don't think anyone here is gonna argue what you just said. I agree with you 100%. My only question is, how long does this grant last for?
So we are not sure how long the grant will last for. It's the Aid to Prosecution grant, which we've received for several years, but this year and last year it was significantly larger than what we had previously received. For the last several years, we had gotten about $55,000 for it, but last year it was around $600,000, and then this year it's $760,000. So we don't know exactly how much we're going to get. I expect that we will get some going forward as we've received it for several years. I just know that New York State is putting in a lot of grant funding for public safety. Most of our grants that we receive have increased over the last 2 years, and I expect them to remain at a similar level, maybe not at the same level that we've been getting, but I expect that we'll still be receiving quite a bit of grant funding, at least for the next few years.
So question is then, I'm just use this as a hypothetical question, say we got this 760,000 this year, next year we get 0. What happens with those all those new people we just hired.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's troubling for us too. And by the way, I just want to point out, the question is, well, come on, there's got to be some rhyme or reason to the money. What's going to happen next year? You got to plan ahead. This isn't the way we work on an individual basis. Well, I'm part of an email group with all the prosecutorial offices across the state, and they're all saying the same things. Like, hey, did you guys get this check? What a surprise. What does it look like next year? Nobody really knows, and that's a political group that's they're a PAC that's in Albany, and they're they're lobbying Albany for additional money to help us out. But I will say one thing is that, initially when we got this money that was like, whoa, very exciting for us, we looked at technology and equipment, and we did invest in that, but you guys know this from the private sector, and I know that from my own experience. You could spend thousands on computer equipment, and it's great for year one, maybe year two, year three, but it starts to become obsolete. Then you're paying for additional, updates to your license agreements. It's a nightmare. I will tell you that my experience, and I think it's yours too, is that your best bang for your buck is with personnel. Because if we have bodies on board, that's going to help us. I can invest in equipment all I want, but it's
Yeah, you need boots on the ground. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about it.
Turn on the computers.
Right. So would these people be full-time hires, permanent with the whole 9 yards, or are these like, they're hired full-time, but if that grant goes away, they go away?
No, I mean, we're putting them in our FTEs, we're, until the pendulum shifts the other way, we need this. I promise you, I can already
I don't
think.
doubt you.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%, Jay, no doubt.
But you're right. Are you guys gonna be saddled with this? Is this sort of like some kind of an odd Trojan horse that the state is doing? Let's just, we'll pay for it now, and then they'll get used to it, and then I have to ask you for additional money. I don't know. Nobody seems to know.
I'm jumping ahead to our public defender's office, and it looks like they're getting 5 fully funded positions.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
it's-
look, the bad guys, let me just call them, the bad guys are getting all sorts of extra resources. The good guys need to match that and perhaps get ahead. To me, it's as simple as that. And we've looked at millions and millions of dollars of appropriations over the last couple of days. This is some of the best money we'll spend. My
Thank you.
opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
How
you know-
much does this grant cover? Is it of these new 4?
It's gonna cover all their salaries for the first year that we have it. So as I said, it's about $760,000.
So it's fully funded.
They're gonna be fully funded for at least, this year, and I'm hoping that we'll at least get something similar to what we've received for the last 2 years for aid to prosecution for next year. Like I said, we're being conservative with our budgeting, expecting not to get anything and hoping to get a lot, and so, or going back to what we were previously receiving for the aid to prosecution, which I said was about $55,000. It's the same with our gun-involved violence elimination grant. We have received historically about $200,000 for our office, or for the entire agencies, and there's 4 agencies involved. The last 2 years, we've received about $600,000, equating to almost $300,000 for our department alone. But for each year, since we have no idea how much money we're gonna be receiving, and it's based off of our stats from the previous cycle, I keep going back down to what we were getting before, hoping to get a little bit extra. So we are planning on budgeting conservatively to see what we have for people, for the expense for personnel, and versus our revenue. And we can certainly work in creative ways with our contractual expenses to minimize the effect on the local share.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm gonna be in favor of it. Cause I just hear the people out in the street that constantly are upset that, they see things that happen and people are getting let go constantly, people aren't, the taxpayers ain't happy with, people stealing stuff or this or that or doing crazy stuff, and then they go there and they, cut them loose without any bail, and, I mean, that's a whole different thing, but I think we need to have some teeth, and we need to start biting down on the bad guys.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions, if I could, too, and statements. Agreed. Over the last several years I've sat on the committee here, it has saddened me whenever we have turned down positions you've asked for. And over the years we have. And I've always asked the question, what is that doing for your ability to prosecute the cases that you have at hand? And I'm certainly certain that it has handicapped you, thus leading to those constituents' complaints. I don't want to continue down that same road because we need to correct that. So I'll be supporting your positions today and in the future in figuring out how the funding is going to work. But you have 33 positions. Are you currently fully staffed? And if you were anticipating hiring these, how do you expect to fill the positions given the issue of having a limited amount of pool of people to choose from? So,
We're attacking this from a number of different angles. We've stepped up our recruitment well beyond the county. We have brought in, I've managed to recruit attorneys now. I'm on my third attorney from the downstate area, which is a benefit to us. We need to grow the community. We need to increase our numbers. So we are meeting with HR and the law department and PJ, our county executive. I am on Tuesday because I really am taking issue with the minimum requirements that have been set forth for the paralegal position, because that is a challenge for at least my office to fill, and we've been very proactive with that. I do think those minimum requirements are a little difficult to achieve, and they're determined on a local level. Erie County doesn't have as stringent requirements. Even New York County, Manhattan, doesn't have as stringent requirements as we do. I would like to see those go down. We have people that are interested in paralegal positions that in the private sector are paralegals that don't qualify. They're very effective, capable paralegals whom many of you already know, and they don't qualify. We have a law school graduate who I wanted to move into a paralegal position, who has already passed part of the bar exam is 3 separate tests, already passed one of the 2 and is awaiting testing for the other 2 parts. That person, I decided, I'm going to move you into this open paralegal slot. We were told they don't qualify because they don't have a paralegal certificate. So a law degree won't substitute for a paralegal certificate. I do believe that in many respects as a county, we're hurting ourselves. These are self-inflicted issues that we can just make adjustments for, and I'm hoping to do that. So we're trying our best here to fill the positions. Give us the financial authority, and we'll try our best. We're not going to waste anybody's money. If we don't fill it, we come out ahead. But we're trying our best, and we can see. I think everyone here can see the labor market is starting to shift now. Now I'm starting to see a lot more interest, whereas it was me. I was in. The function of the market is such that employers are in the worst possible position negotiating. But now I think we're getting a little bit better there.
Our Human Resources Department is investing into the system that puts our ads out for positions. Do you find that tool useful, and has it been successful for your department?
We have advertised like on Indeed or ZipRecruiter, and I think we've gotten some interest for the positions. We haven't had a lot of the positions where we've been advertising on those websites recently. So currently we only have 1 vacancy in our office, and that's the paralegal position that the DA referenced. But we've had a lot of success with advertising on law school career fairs, like law school web pages. Even just on our website for the county, we put on there that we're continuously recruiting for all kinds of positions, and we've gotten some success for that. I did some community engagement events with the Jamestown Police Department that we were recruiting for, and we did get some interest from that as well.
We attend career fairs. We have like the Jason and Maddie show where we're out in the UB Law in the middle of the night in February or whatever. We're trying our best here to bring people into the county. We do have the residency requirement with our attorneys. There are mechanisms to move that, but I would like to see everybody in our county. I think our whole legal community is aware of my needs because I meet with each and every one of them and I'm trying to see, I don't want, there are certain people that we don't want to employ, we know just in in the private sector. I feel the same way. It's not just a matter of bodies. We need to have a capable people here. Otherwise, people are going to be very upset, And the point that you made, Bob, about, how upset the community can get because someone gets arrested and then they're out because of the bail laws. Yeah, we feel that, and the end result of that is that in order to hold them accountable, it has to be on the back end of the case. Gone are the days where somebody was sitting for 60 days on something and they might plead and get out with time served, and that's a nice, easy way to manage, judicial economy, but that's gone. If you really want to hold somebody accountable for the wrong they committed, for the crime they committed, you have to take the case all the way to the mat, and that's like a whole different rubric or dynamic than it used to be.
Yeah, I agree.
By the way, we listen to jail calls all the time, right? That's part of police investigations. And do you know what what the defendants know this stuff too? They're like, nah, yeah, I'm not going to take that plea because my attorney tells me that if we go to trial, there more than likely will be a discovery violation. That was on our homicide case. And when our investigators reported that to me, I laughed and I said, not in this case. Well, guess what? The defendant and the defense attorney were correct. It happened, and now we almost hurt the case very badly because of a misstep at the local agency because they're under-resourced, but we have it, we got it back, and that's gonna be on our December calendar. It's crazy,
Are there grants available for local law enforcement?
Yeah, so one of the issues I brought up a couple of times, and I think it is something we all should look at once we get through this process, is I do believe we should have a grant writer on a county level, because I believe that a lot of these grant writers might do things on a contingency basis if they can bring in money. Nobody seems to have the time to really focus on chasing after the money. And also, when they submit these proposed budgets, things change, and I've seen where some of our police agencies have actually given back money or not used money, and it was very upsetting to me as somebody who has shopped in garage sales all his life and, has even been inside a Salvation Army for clothes at times. I don't like that, but you talk to them and they say, well, okay, who's gonna do that? I got 15,000 911 calls that we have to manage, and we've got this, and nobody is there to do it. Everybody's got great ideas, we just don't have people to do it. So yes, I believe there's money out there that we are not tapping, but when I say to Maddie, get me the money, and I get upset, she looks at me and says, sure, I can, but okay, who's gonna take this responsibility? Who's gonna take that? And thankfully, the Department of Finance has been terrific in helping us to manage that. But like I said, when I tried to get the anesthesiologist to do surgical work, then HR and the union said, no, time out. You're now treading on, this is improper. And so, we're trying our best here under the rules that are established.
Okay. Bill, you got anything? Yes?
Yeah, why is it such a secret? When do you find out about that grant? Why that we're talking about?
In the middle of the year.
When do you find out how much it is?
Yeah, nobody,
Yeah.
I don't know. So if I'm understanding it correctly, there's a fund that was established out of the downstate area where we have these huge corporate defendants. Corporations can be defendants in criminal actions, and generally, obviously, they're not, maybe a corporate actor may go to jail, but the corporation itself, the liability is a fine, and they've developed a huge fund that they're sitting on that the state can just administrate. That's several $1 million large, and each year it grows. And each year they look at stats, and they appear to be giving out this money now much more aggressively, recognizing, because there's lobbying taking place from the District Attorneys Association in Albany, saying we can't do this under these circumstances. So they've been giving us money, but nobody knows what the next round will result in.
And just to add, we received that money about the exact same day they received notification. We're getting it, we're receiving an ACH and finance with that money. In this case, we do have this money. It's for 2024, 25, so we're gonna defer it for use in next year's budget. But the Public Defender's Office was the same thing. They received 8 to defense grants, same manner. Money was here about the same time we received notification.
I should add one more thing. I mean, I see Gib Taylor's in the room from probation. We're all talking with one another. Gib has been terrific. Gib sometimes says to me, hey, we have this lying around. Do you need this piece of equipment? And I'll say yes, and we do the same, hey, we just got some money here that we need to, allocate for specific purposes. What can I do? Can we team up together? We were looking at Celebrite to partner together, which allows us to get into phones, because phones are a great instrumentality for crimes just as much as they are for businesses, for legitimate businesses. Well, we're trying to work with one another. I mean, we're trying to consolidate our efforts. Shared services has value to us as a relatively modest economy here in Chautauqua County. And we are working with our partnerships as much as we can, but there's only so much we have available to us.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
if you
go
would.
ahead.
In the detail, on page 204, there's a line item, 4590, it's for other contractual. So I kind of think I might know what it is, but could you explain that? Over the years, you budgeted a low amount, but it's turned out to be a high amount. And I'm assuming this year, and I'm assuming you also throughout the year, you may have you can offset it within your own department, but sometimes you can't. What is that?
Yeah, so the other contractual account we use for when we have received grant funding, like for the Discovery Grant or for this grant that we are doing a subcontract with the police departments for. So the Discovery Grant that we've received for the last, 3 years, kind of in 3 cycles, we've given money to the police departments for discovery compliance, and we put it in that account. So I, haven't been budgeting really anything in the account for the tentative budget because we don't know what we'll receive, if we'll receive anything to give to the police departments for next year. So if we do receive something, then we would ask for a budget amendment to increase that account while increasing our revenue. But so for 2022, we had quite a bit. That was the first installment of this Discovery Grant, and we gave almost half of it to the police agencies, to each of the 6 police agencies, 7 police agencies. In 2023, we did kind of the same process, but we reduced it down a little bit. So instead of giving them, some of them were getting like 60,000, 50,000. For the 2023, we gave them, I think, each $10,000 to kind of just supplement the money that we had given them before. And then for this year, we didn't budget anything for the Discovery Grant because we weren't aware if we were going to get anything. And then in January of this year, we received the 3rd installment of the Discovery Grant. We reached out to the police agencies, asked them what they were still lacking in discovery, and they sent us proposals, and then we, did the contracts with them as we saw fit. So it's kind of been just we wait to see what we receive from the state, and then we go to the police agencies and we're like, this is what we have for you. What can we purchase for you? And then we create the contracts.
Can I just point out the parameters of the funding that we're receiving are that we do have to share that with the police. It's for police and prosecutors.
Police, prosecutors, and probation.
Is it determined, or can you make the decision on what you award them? And my questioning is I thought that's kind of what that account was, but you started off by saying you yourselves are doing most of the work anyway for these police agencies, so are they using the funds effectively, and is it proper? And can they find the people too? Would it be better to keep more in-house to be able to cover that, right? So that's kind of where I'm going.
I wish we could have done a field trip as a group to some of our local police departments. It's really a difficult thing. I did share with the group, like Bob, I shared with you what the challenges Dunkirk was facing. Dave Ortolano, the chief over there, was embarrassed to have me standing in like this side area, shaking a cord in the back of a monitor so I can watch a suspect interview. And this is the kind of stuff that's happening. In Ellicott, they did a suspect interview. I'm standing there, this is at 3:00 in the morning. I can't make out a word on the monitor in the other room. I can't be in the room. I don't want to make myself a witness. So I'm monitoring everything. We're supposed to be giving guidance to the police. That's an equivocal or unequivocal, invocation of a right to counsel. Stop, or this or that, But I can't make out anything. And then, Kevin Pierce comes out and it's like, oh, I think that it recorded correctly, then we find out it didn't record correctly. It's stupid stuff that they don't even have the funding for. They're upset that they don't have the fund. We're just trying to fund them. That doesn't even get us to where we are, where we should be. We're trying to get to where we should be, and I can go, I could go on and on, but Fredonia has its own unique problems. I mean, we're giving them equipment so that they could actually just talk to you. You can't compromise an interview because you have another suspect or a witness that's right over there. They don't even have the rooms and the equipment so that we can monitor an interview. That's all that we were doing. How about take the Econo Lodge. We were out there, just to sit on a computer and access the county system becomes, a major ordeal because of the way that things are set up. So we created our own Google Drive with everything we need so that I could prepare a search warrant at 2 a.m. And we were ready to go, but they don't have any of that. We're moving people out of the station because we don't have the room. We don't have individual rooms. This is like, are we professional? This is sort of, we're getting to a place where we're no longer professional as a group. Think about, Bob, the businesses you've run successfully. If you were to look at how we are running our police services, you got a bunch of professionals that just don't have the money, and they're triaging just the same way we are. It's very difficult,
Jason, I think I'm not cutting this off. We all get it.
Because we ordered lunch.
I mean, my personal story, I had a situation at one of my businesses, caught the people red-handed, had the officer come in who I know and trust and love, and that was the end of it. It's like, we know it happened, we saw it happen, I had it on tape, they knew who it was, they knew where they lived, and they said, he said to me, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want him arrested, and I want to be paid for what they did. And then he said, well, that's not going to happen. And I could sense what frustrated me was, this is on the scene at the call, and he's already, and this isn't a knock on him, he's surrendered because he knows what's going to happen to this. And my request was, how about if they never come into this place of business again? And he goes, that I can almost do, because how do you monitor that if they walk through or whatever? So I was very frustrated, but I got it. I just wish the state or feds or whoever is responsible, instead of, it doesn't seem anymore that it matters if you committed the crime or not. It's all about the technicalities of the process. And man, that frustrates the bejeebers out of me, because instead of raising the bar and making, you can't use a water bottle as testimony anymore, why not knock all that off? Reduce all this back to the playing field we were used to 25 years ago, and then we don't have to be looking for this grant money, because we don't need it. Does that make sense?
It
The
does.
offense doesn't need it, and the defense doesn't need it, because we're where we should be. Now, I know, speaking about that in this room right now, and I'm preaching to the choir, we're all part of that choir. I just wish there was a way to get that to the state, to the lawmakers, to say, stop it. Let's focus more on, I'll use murder, because did the guy murder him, or girl, or didn't they? And let's have an opportunity to prove it or disprove it, instead of creating 17 more layers of technicality and difficulties, and and let's face it, our constituents, we fund the offense and we fund the defense. It's like we're funding the whole game, and all we want is what's right to win. That's all we want. You did it, or you didn't do it, or you did it because of this, so we can lower this. This drives me crazy.
First of all, that story that you gave me is so disturbing that I want to address that, because these are quality of life issues that are just as important as, right now, year to date, we're at 8 homicides, 2 of which have not been charged yet because we're building the cases. But we've got 8 homicides. Back in June, we were at 6. And we had more homicides than Boston you know, because I was looking at the Boston's, it was in the newspaper how Boston's numbers has gone down. Our numbers are up. So we have to deal with both sides of this, because those quality of life issues, that's the difference between you saying, you know what, to heck with this, why am I going through another harsh winter? Well, actually, the winters are pretty good.
Right.
But you know, why am I doing this? I might as well move out of state where the taxes are low. I agree. There's a difference between retaining people and making people feel as if they're safe and the system is working, and feeling the way you do. That disturbs me to no end. That's problematic for me. And also, think about the trickle down. It's not how that affected you and your neighbors and the people. How about those police officers? That police officer right now is like, why am I doing this? Why am I
Every police
yeah.
officer I talk to,
Yeah.
except for the 6 months on the force guy,
Yeah.
they tell me, after I get done, without soliciting it, they tell me how many years they have left.
That's what I was gonna say. It used to be, go ask here, try a little science experiment for yourself. It used to be when those that were talking about it would say maybe 2 years. At the 2-year mark, they started counting. Sometimes 3 years
I
for
hear
some
7.
people. Yeah, that's what just happened to me the other day. I got 7 years, 6 months left. Could you imagine that existence, that you're counting the days and you're several years off? I mean, it's hard. I mean, in all seriousness, it is heartbreaking, because it shouldn't, this isn't the way we live in Chautauqua County.
And not
These are our
being
police.
critical of them, but the old saying, if you're talking about retirement, you've already retired, but I understand the frustration. They have to show up, they have to take the report. It happened, what I said, okay, and on his way out, 4 more years.
Yeah.
I don't wanna get too specific, cause we'll figure out who it is, but
No.
4 more years.
Yeah, okay, I think I know. No. No, but seriously, that guy is going through a divorce because he couldn't be home because he had to do 3 hours of paperwork on a case, and he's carrying that with him. Why am I doing this? Couldn't go to his kid's soccer game. I know I've said this before, but I just took a couple of police officers on our forensic investigation team, 3 of them, out to lunch just to show them, from, you know, not from our budget, from my own money, just to show them, hey, I care for you. Did the same last week. These are people that we're losing, you know? And that person, that officer that's on the job for 6 months, isn't it the work? Can you guys remember when you were the young person in the work environment? There's always that older person that would tell you how life sucks and it doesn't work and this job sucks and who cares and I can't wait to get out of here. What we like to do is push that person away from the new person because that's a contamination that we can't afford. That's happening right now. Where we're thinking about succession in our jobs and our lives, and I want these younger officers to stay inspired because it is exciting and we are doing good jobs. It's so difficult right now, you know.
And I'll go on record, this officer that I'm talking about, if I needed him for anything, I'd call him in a second. You know what I mean? I don't mean he hasn't given up on that, but
Yeah.
the realization of this is not gonna go anywhere, let's just call it. But-
You're right. We have to get through this
Very
somehow.
sad, yeah.
Smart. And I know, and I appreciate the hard jobs that you guys are doing because this is difficult. You control the money. We don't have a lot of money. It's scary, you know?
Okay. Any other questions?
What is this FIT training?
Oh, that's for our forensic investigation team that Jason was just talking about. It's a group of police officers from across the county that work on all major crimes in Chautauqua County. So they're from all different agencies, but if the lead agency feels the need that they would like to call the forensic team out, they will do a call out, and anybody from the team that's in any other agency will come and respond to that scene. So we have been financing the forensic investigation team for several years, buying them supplies, and then through our GIVE grant, we've been lucky enough to receive training that we can offer to the police officers.
I think they were here a few months back.
Yeah, they were, and I just couldn't remember what.
We've also
Fits, acronyms, and I don't get along very well.
They are so critical to all our serious crimes. And if you were to sit through a jury trial or be with us when we talk to jurors afterwards, everybody is focused on, the forensics. Was there DNA here? How can you prove this possession case without DNA? Well, guess what? It's not as easy to recover DNA as possible. Noel Gutman is here, so he can speak. No, can you? He can tell you more about this than I could, but it is very difficult to recover DNA. Well, when we do recover it, you would think we got the golden egg and we're going to get our conviction. Well, no, there's a concept called secondary transfer, and our police officers, as much as we train them in our forensic investigation team, which is trained to how to collect evidence so we can minimize the risk of transfer of DNA. Well, jurors are so attuned to it that that gun that momentarily sat in the, well, that defendant's DNA. We just had a case with a not guilty verdict where we had DNA, we had officer observations, but the secondary transfer argument prevailed. So here we are again. Oh, well, now I'm struggling. I have DNA. I finally have DNA. We didn't get a conviction then. Well, now we've got to consult with experts so we can negate the DNA, the secondary transfer argument, so that jurors can be schooled that listen, that's a great thing on TV. It's just the biological material here, the quantities don't lend itself to that conclusion. It's just difficult. We're going every which way we go. It requires more funding for us, whether we're on a crime scene, or whether, we're in the courtroom. It's constant for us, and yet the money can't keep up with, with the pace that we're moving at right now.
It's funny, you say television, that probably doesn't help, does it?
Yeah.
All these television shows,
Right.
it's gotta drive you nuts.
It does. Everyone talks about the CGI effect, or what is CSI? CSI is the show. Yeah. So it's true. People recognize that, and and everyone has expectations about what they're going to see in a trial presentation, and they don't appreciate. I mean, I could just go on and on about this stuff. You don't even appreciate that when we collect evidence, we may, at a shooting event, we may collect 30 or 40 pieces of evidence. Well, guess what? We don't have our own crime lab here, so we rely on state police in Erie County. They're overwhelmed as well, so they limit our numbers. So we now have a protocol where we contact the labs, we are on the phone with them, we go through the crime scene, and they say to us, well, we'll take this, this, and this. They limit us to 5 pieces of evidence. So guess what you do if you're a good defense attorney and you're a good demolition expert in construction? You get to say to the jurors, why didn't they test this? Why didn't they test that? Why didn't they test this? It makes it look like we don't know what we're doing, and it's an incomplete investigation, when in reality we're just working through the same logistical hurdles that every single business has when you'd like to spend money every which way, but you can't. So meanwhile, we're trying to combat that. By the way, do you know what we're doing? We have an initiative where we're trying to create a crime lab here in Chautauqua County in conjunction with SUNY Fredonia. And we've been meeting with the president of the college. We've gotten a go-ahead from the chancellor in Albany. We are trying to develop an anchor program that will attract more people into the community to go to SUNY Fredonia, because forensics is something that's interesting for a lot of people. It's a sexy kind of line of work for students to get into. That will help the entire community. SUNY Fredonia is very excited about our efforts right now. And we're at a stage where we're going into a feasibility study to make it happen. Nobody is doing this. The closest that I can see is Dr. Dirk Matt in Mercyhurst. We've employed that forensic anthropology unit. He utilizes students to come to certain crime scenes, some of our cold cases, the Portland homicides, those bodies that were buried. We utilize Dr. Dirk Matt. Well, we could have that at SUNY Fredonia. So we're working on that, a crime lab initiative as well to try to help the community. There's a holistic view to all this.
Could that be an actual crime lab also?
No, that's what we're doing. It is going to be.
And then it'd be an educational.
It'll be an educational hub. It'll be a new program in SUNY Fredonia. The president loves it. According to the president at all our meetings, the chancellor of SUNY is on board with it. They were going to use the incubator, and now they want it on campus. And we have to maintain accreditation as determined by DCJS, so we brought in the accreditation standards. We're looking for the right firm to do the feasibility study so that we can make sure that we can do this. We're starting out with biological analyses, DNA analyses, and data extraction from vehicles, because we have invested in that technology as well. You'd be shocked at the information that's available inside of vehicles, not just GPS coordinates, but if you roll your window down on your way home, and we'll know it when we go into your, hopefully we'll know it. But we've invested in licenses for our newly created homicide investigation team, which we created out of the DA's office. We've gotten buy-in from all of the local agencies so that we can deploy them. We are moving into a shared services dynamic here that I think ultimately will help the community as a whole, but it's kicking and screaming getting us there, and it requires an investment in our infrastructure, and that's what we're trying to achieve here, in addition to just simply prosecuting our cases.
I know.
Sorry, guys. I
You're
know,
done.
I know. Get out of here. Okay.
Thank you.
Anytime you want to talk.
Yeah. Anytime we want to hear you talk.
Wait, I wanted to be the one that told him to shut up, because he said we could do that.
I
so.
think it's bad.
Sorry. Don't ever ask a lawyer an open question, I guess.
You weren't gonna speak at first, but then you got going, so, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Sam, what did you want to say?
Hey. It's nice not to do talk.
Enjoy your passion.
Good morning.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, all right, you're done.
Talk fast.
Mine's probably going to be a little simpler.
We should hope.
Let's
Never know.
You can identify yourself.
We got Ned coming, so.
Sam Zafoto, Deputy Director of Finance, and this is tab 13 in the binders.
Gilbert Taylor, the Director of Probation. Should we wait or just
Go ahead.
continue? I'm actually pretty proud of our budget this year. Our FTEs have not changed. They've remained the same this year. Our county share has gone up 2.2%, but with the raises across the board through the union, they're 3%, ours is actually lower than that. I have to tell you, every time I go through the budget, I always kind of get stymied on where I should go and what I should talk about first. So we have had some increases in our personal services. Those increases were offset by grant monies we received. The earlier question about grant monies and using them for salaries of a specific employee, we don't do that generally because we do worry about that money going away. Although I will say the state does push us to do that quite heavily. Our budget's increased to replace some laptops. And one of the big increases for us for technology was our Automon contract. Automon is who basically runs our database for all of our criminal justice stuff in the department. That went up because they no longer allow us to host their network. We have to go through them now. It would be good to find another program to do that. Unfortunately, across New York State, Caseload Explorer is the only game in town. So we would have to get multiple counties to change in order to make that even any less expensive. Employment benefits have went up in accordance with the personal services. And we did receive an increase in ATI funding that will offset the budget increases in our department. So that's us in a nutshell.
So basically, your budget's only going up $53,000?
We were able to use some of the grant money we had to offset the burden on the county. And we have a plan in place to make sure that continues forward. And with attrition over employees over the next few years, there should be no real increase to the county for that. We're planning ahead for the next 5 years.
Job well done.
Thanks.
Keep up the good work. I have no questions. Phil, you got anything? Audit control, any questions?
I have a general question, if you
Sure.
Get it, Dan.
about the employees. So you currently have 33, I'll round up.
Yep.
Employees. So how, are you fully staffed? And, recruitment, retention, that sort of thing? How's your department been with that?
That's sort of a baited question.
Yes and no.
Never have enough help, always could use
Well,
some more help.
our caseload number size, with what Jason was talking about convictions and things, and I've said this before in other meetings, probation has become the catch-all. When they can't get a guaranteed conviction, usually a plea bargain between the two will result in probation. Our numbers in probation dropped down a little bit during COVID, but now they're back up. And so we've not asked for new employees, we've not asked for increases. We do kind of have a plan in place where down the road, maybe we could adjust one person's position and then upgrade it and then come back to you guys if that is possible down the road. But right now, we're making do with what we have, and my staff have always stepped up and always maintained. And I'm very blessed to have the people that are willing to do the job. So, could we use more people? Absolutely. Can we make do with what we have right now? Yes.
And I wasn't degrading the value of work or anything that you do.
No.
My only, just a simple question is, are you fully staffed?
We are fully staffed with what well, right now, we are down one probation officer assistant, but we are ready to hire them immediately, and that position is in here. We hired someone, they didn't meet our criteria, and they resigned, but we have a new person lined up to come in, so we are, for practical purposes, fully staffed.
No, and we understand the extra load that all the departments in public safety have taken on with new rules, and we certainly can assume the responsibilities that your office has taken. That we understand that, yeah, you end up getting more people on probation because of the way things roll out. So, you know, the burden's there, and we do appreciate the extra efforts that everyone does put in, and our county's only is as good as the employees we have, and we employ some really great people, so. thank you.
And you brought up something that, I know we're kind of in time, but the recruitment retention across the county, but specifically for me in probation, is something we're focusing heavily on it. Kitty helped me with a program we're starting to run, and will be a model across New York State for wellness, to try to increase. It's so much cheaper to retain employees than to hire new ones and train them. For us, I was able to reduce our training costs for this coming year by finding other agencies to train. But we shouldn't have to retrain if we can find a way to retain the employees we have. And sometimes, what we've done over this last 4 years is figured out how to make our employees understand that we value them inside and outside of the job. And if they understand that we focus on a family-first mentality, if you can't deal with the needs of your home because you're stressed out about your kid or your sick mother, coming to work isn't going to help us. As a county, as community safety, we have to address the needs in and outside of work. And unfortunately, for years, we've only focused on the needs of the employee in work. And that's why we've had losses and transitions. We have to change that mentality and start focusing on more. And we've been very successful with that. And we've seen the fruits.
Thank you for that. You know, retention is a part of the reason I'm asking that same question to everybody, and it sounds like your department's put a lot of effort into that, so thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Oh, you're up.
You would know.
He's with everybody.
Good morning, Mrs. Peters. Okay, state your name and your title for the
Noel
audience at
Gutman,
home.
Director of Emergency Services.
Sam Zafoto, Deputy Director of Finance.
Bonnie Peters, Principal Account Clerk, Emergency Services.
Okay, take it away.
So our budget is going up substantially due to many different factors. Our personnel part is going up 0.66 of a FTE, And you can see there that we had problems last year. 2 of our full-time positions were actually put in at halftime. So the wages were correct in our budget last year, but not the FTEs.
Yeah, there was an issue with the position in the budget module. For whatever reason, it was a 1.0, but it was set to only record as a 0.49, but in the actual HR module, it was a 1.0 with the full wages and benefits, and I did confirm they were in the budget last year.
So now we're corrected then, moving forward?
Yes.
And there are some other allocation changes, just kind of the one of the major that was through there. Part of it is a shift of the senior account clerk, which is kind of due to some changing responsibilities due to the fiscal restructure and kind of my staff assisting EMS. And then there is a larger increase of the county's chief medical officer being charged to EMS for this 25 budget.
Okay.
Okay. So, once we get into the individual organizations, 3010 are emergency services. That is, you can see increases there for insurance and for a D-land upgrade.
What's a D-land?
Computer software we use for emergency management and day-to-day functionality of the office. It's a cloud-based program that we use to interface with the state and really run our day-to-day operations for a lot of stuff we do.
So for our revenue, we budgeted for the SHSP 24 grant, which is what we know we are going to get. We are not sure what other grants we get, we will be able to get, so when we get those would be done by budget amendment. We have in 3010, an upgrade to our security for, our emergency office, emergency services office here in Mayville. So next is 3410. We are projecting 4,000 again. That is for our newsletter and some awards for our fire advisory board. For 3625, which is our tech rescue team, we have a slight increase in equipment and vehicle maintenance and the preventative maintenance.
Some of that increase was, wanted to account for the dive team. They have their dive masks are supposed to be yearly certified, and that hasn't been done, so that's something I wanted to, it's kind of important for the guys to be able to breathe underwater.
Sure.
So I wanted
Makes
to make
sense.
sure their equipment is properly certified, so when they're out doing that, so that's what some of that account. And then the other, some equipment maintenance there is, the air packs that the tech rescue guys use need to be yearly certified and inspected as well. So that's, well, it wasn't accounted for before, something has slipped through the cracks.
When was the last time that they were inspected?
The air packs we got them on a grant last year, so they're actually brand new, so they're coming up for inspection. And I want to account for that going forward. The dive mask, I don't believe is something that's been done in many, many years.
Okay. Okay.
For 3640, which is our hazmat, we are replacing some gas meters. We have 12 of them. We replaced 3 of them in the current year we're on. So this would replace number 4, 5, and 6, and we would work on replacing the other 6 over time.
will that have any, with the other ones that need to be replaced, is that gonna put you at a, equipment that we can't use in case of?
That's one of those pieces of equipment that they just get, the gas meters all have consumable filters and sensors in them, and they really have a life to them, and there's only so many times you can buy the filters again before the software gets outdated in them. So there's, the equipment's gotten better, and, that's where, the system we're going to now actually has a built-in monitoring device to it, so if the technician's using that, and they were to fall down or be incapacitated, it actually sends an alert to the people there's a problem. It does real-time recording. It's a cloud-based software where all the data is recorded on there, which is in compliance with some of the NFPA standards of how to use that equipment. So, yeah, we're making it more efficient, more safe for the guys using it.
Okay.
For 3989 emergency services, we are continuing to replace body armor for
And-
our,
And if I can interrupt at this point, I believe you guys may not have been notified, but this is one of the amendments I think we had planned, is the body armor capital project was announced as funded yesterday, so I believe the intention was to remove that at this point.
Yeah, we can,
okay?
yeah, well,
So we also, as Sam said, increased the chief medical officer up to 25% of his salary is now under 3989, as well as the lease payments for his vehicle and fuel for his vehicle. I am pleased to say, have filled our emergency services education coordinator. And so there is just a bit in there to send that person to trainings and, items of that nature. For the CME, this includes some portion of that EMS coordinator position. And again, it does move some of the senior account clerk payroll into the CME funding. So we, let me see here. We had an increase in our target solutions. That is the company, Noel can explain it better than I can, but that is the company where, for the whole county, all of
the online platform that EMTs and paramedics do the recertification process through.
for the EMS flag car. So we have, some changes here. I know that Tim Carlson worked with Pierre and they, went through the revenue portion and put that more into line based off of where our payments actually come in, Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. So that is, reflected there in our revenue portion. We had put in for 3 power stretchers, and that was adjusted to 1.
And as we also saw in the exhibit yesterday, the power stretcher capital request was approved for a power stretcher as well. They do need 3. It looks like there was 1 approved through the capital request, so I guess that would be a decision to be made
Right.
today if we were gonna fund a second one this
Wasn't
year.
that award 98,000?
No, that was 70-something. They're about $50,000 a piece, the way they are with in this one here, we reduced it down to 1 for 50,000, we can probably reduce that down a little bit further to match the capital, so we can get the two. We reevaluate our needs, that we don't need three of them at this point. So we can make a reduction there as well.
But just to be transparent, that it was in the exhibit for capital yesterday too, and in the operation.
And what is that, what was that amount? I thought it was more than,
It was like, I think it was like a 73 or 72,000. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, when we first started looking at them and we priced them during capital, they were one price, and unfortunately they have gone up.
Imagine that.
Yeah, like everything, unfortunately.
But you said you can make an adjustment.
We can
so
make an adjustment there to cover, just so we can get between the capital and this. It would probably be an adjustment of, I think, around $20,000 we can take out of there.
And then next year we can get the third.
There was
We-
$64,000 included in the capital budget for the power structure.
64, okay.
64.
So, yeah, so we can make, we would need about a total of 100 in there to get the two, so we can, whatever, we can make that adjustment to cover those costs.
So we could take $14,000 out of this expense line then?
Yes, I believe that, the math at this point right now in my head isn't working, but
Yep.
whatever that number would be, we can absolutely take right out of there.
Okay, so this committee should consider that as an amendment at the end. Yep.
At the end here?
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully Sam or John are keeping track of everything we're talked about.
I've got that, I do have that one.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna go off script a little bit here.
Oh,
I know
boy.
Pierre is shocked. I just want you guys to think about this when you're thinking about cutting that, expense. That is for our staff. So when our staff is out, and again, Noel can explain it better than I can, but when our staff is out on a call and they have to wheel somebody wherever, without a power stretcher to help them, if they're having to do it manually and lift them up or whatever, please just keep in mind that,
Especially a very heavy person.
Yeah.
yes, and
I can tell you, with the push of a button, you can lift 700 pounds.
with, with,
I've seen it.
We
The
could take the
power.
smallest, when my fire department purchased them, we took one of our EMTs, she was about 100 pounds, soaking wet with a 50-pound weight. And she loaded me into the ambulance by herself. And that's how effective they are. And the cost of one back injury far outweighs the cost of,
Right.
Bonnie, I appreciate you going off script, because this is a great investment by the county. And I think what we're talking about is fully funding two of these.
yeah.
We don't have any now. We do.
I think we were able to buy a used one last year
I think
for one of our ambulances, and the goal is to get all of our ambulances up to them. It's really, and the unfortunate thing, it's a national problem that we've all talked about, is manpower showing up on calls. And this cot really is a force multiplier for our people that are there when it's, it might be two young ladies that are working the ambulance and they have to load someone in by themselves. This is gonna allow them to do it more safely, more efficiently. And even if there's 12 people that show up, it takes some of it makes everything, the biggest thing is making everything safer and more efficient, and this is exactly one of those things that does that.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I've seen them operate.
Yeah, it's really, to be able to, like I said, on the cot, it says 700 pounds, and you literally, it's just one button, and it'll just raise up by itself. You put it in the ambulance, and
It seems like there's a lot of calls lately that have been for lift assists and stuff like that.
yeah.
With the fly car and everything, I know we had people from Clymer over here, and has there been, I know it's too late for budgeting, but how do we tackle additional needs in that regard? I mean,
Moving forward, obviously, it's not in this year's budget, but I mean, this is gonna rear its ugly head again.
Oh, absolutely, and it's the gentlemen, all those guys from Clymer, they're hitting the nail right on the head. There is a need in that western part of the county, and like I say, we have a grant request out right now for some equipment that would help cover that. We have not heard on that. It's still in limbo. I don't know when we're gonna hear on that. But that western part of the county is something that we're gonna have to try and work on at some point. And one of the things we're trying to do right now is, as our, unfortunately, we're suffering from some manpower issues like every industry is right now. We can't always get people to work. I don't know why. I'm a workaholic. I love working. But when we have some full staff at the office, we're using our senior medics to fill a local car, and we're trying to push a vehicle out west to just, it's kind of hard right now because they don't really have a place to live. I'm sure one of the Clymer, Finn Lake, I'm sure we could just park there at their station. But we're trying to fill that need, that gap as we can, by trying to put a vehicle out there as our manpower allows to try and help.
Yeah, I don't wanna spend a lot of time on it,
Yeah.
we're talking, but I'm a proponent of fly car, and I think it's not gonna make the county money, but it's.
Yeah, one of my, again, not to belabor it too long, but if we do have a good winter recreation coming up for ski season, we'll have to look at some manpower reallocation, for what we have currently of positioning vehicles around, because peak, as we know, peak and peak at last year, I think, on a slow year, they still had 120, 130 calls there,
Yeah,
so.
That's amazing.
The good thing is, Finn Lake did get some basic EMTs.
we did 5,
Yeah, so that was a great thing for them, so that's gonna help in that aspect.
and they have a powered. Okay.
So for our fly cars, we have, asked for additional monies into the computer software. The software in our vehicles is very old
Hardware,
and not,
they're running on computers that are from 2014, 15. One of our guys in our office is scavenging one broken computer to make a good computer. And as we know, everything that we do, we have to have the computers to run. And they're scavenging computers to keep up and running. And not like all the ambulances, they don't have them. Only our transport ambulance has one.
and
Just-
that transport one is very old. We've tried to even replace the battery in it to keep it fully charged, and that's not working. So the vehicle itself has to be running, or the computer shuts off. So when they go to a facility, they have to turn the ambulance off, and then have to restart it, restart the computer, all of that business. So part of that is to help with that old technology. Trying to see. Oh, and I wasn't here for the audit and control, for last month, but I did say during, our, public safety, that as of the ending of August, the transport truck itself was positive. I believe it was about $26,000 so far this year. So transport truck is doing very well. So this is a concern for me at this point. Under 4590, our other contractual, we asked for $300,000, due to the multiple agencies coming underneath of us. And so that is, $25,000 a month that we are expecting to send out. This, for the month of, August, we sent out just short of $64,000. So that, that number does concern me again, but we don't know what the other agencies are doing, and, it may be 6 months before we get income in from a call for them as well. So the 65,000 we just sent out could have been from months before as well.
In addition, if that line goes up, revenue is also gonna go up correspondingly. So if that does go up next year, the goal would be where revenue is now, we would be coming in with a budget neutral resolution to increase revenue and expense.
Yes. Just to, a little deeper into that. So our umbrella arrangements with the volunteer fire departments and districts is that when their ambulance comes under our umbrella license, we then bill for the reimbursements to the insurance agencies, Medicare, Medicaid, et cetera, and we receive the reimbursement. We keep 15% for our costs of administering and doing and billing and all that, and the balance, the 85%, is returned to the agency, to the fire department or fire district.
That's true, yes. And it's not sent until the money comes in.
Correct.
So
Yeah, it's only of monies received.
only
Right.
money's received.
Money in, money out.
That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's 15% of the money we receive
Yes.
We keep for our expenses.
for
Yeah.
administrative.
And
Does that-
as we've learned, the insurance is an interesting world to dive into as to what is billed and what is collected and how well they fight to not pay anything and,
Yep.
And we only send out 85% of what we receive.
correct.
Right.
Are those percentages realistic?
They've been, it's probably something that needs to, as we continue on, need to look at reevaluating, but
As of now, 15 and 85 is good.
we're not losing money on the deal from the work that Tim is doing in our office, and Tim has been the office expert on the contracts and doing the work of getting it out. So we're not losing money by doing that, but in the future, it's probably something we need to look at.
I've been told by members of a couple of the umbrella agencies, the fire departments and fire districts, they think this is a great deal for them. They think we're getting the short end of this stick.
That's why I asked that
Yeah.
question.
15% doesn't seem much.
And we also pay our third-party billing agent. We pay them for everyone, but that is deducted from the amount we send to them. So we keep our 15% and we also keep the money that we have to pay the billing agent for doing the work for the different agencies.
Thank you for that additional clarification, Bonnie.
Yes, thank you.
So I don't mean to belabor it, but, so the 65,000 we sent out last month was, in a nutshell, 85% of the total we got.
Correct.
Yes.
So why does that concern you? I guess I just can't grasp that.
Because what we put in as revenue is what we had,
Just-
what we expect to get for us.
So it's just a budgetary.
Right, and as Sam
All right.
indicated, we expect.
I have trouble with that
I
one
get
too.
it now. All of a sudden the light bulb came on.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's basically the line item we'd like to see kind of go up, because that means money's coming in on top of our expenses.
Bonnie's just dreading coming before the committee next year and asking for a budget amendment because we got more money coming in and going out.
Correct.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All
Yeah,
of a
so
sudden
this
it just-
time,
yeah.
we put in our revenue what we expect to get for the agencies and what we expect to send out. So those are even, but because we projected it to be 25, I
Yeah.
imagine that it's gonna,
Done.
we,
I have a couple questions if you would too. On the fly car system itself, the fuel, the gasoline, it's on page 12 of 14, the very top line. We've spent up to 21,000 this year, and we have a adopted budget of 60,000, and that's really about double what you actually did in 22 and 23. Are you anticipating using all that fuel, and are we doing that much more traveling? I'm curious how we are on pace this year, and if you're okay with that.
we do expect for it to be close to that. Our transport vehicle is usually running multiple trips down into Pittsburgh, even up into Rochester. So we do expect that to be substantially
Sure, and
more.
I suppose as a project or that part of that service expands, you a little bit unknown on what you're actually gonna be doing with it until you're doing it. So you know, you are running pretty short. Now, this was done, this is kinda old.
Yeah, that's through
Right.
June, too. And it actually may only be through May, because their fuel may get charged out from DPF, and I think the journal entry didn't get posted.
Okay.
I turned my laptop, I don't have the actual, so.
And, well, I have the audience, I suppose. I see, you know, you have some vacancy savings that you've experienced through the year in the fly car system, but in general, your FTEs, you have, was it 34, 35 positions that you're looking to do this year. How have you had, are you fully staffed? Over the years, discussion about having the people available and, you know, you've struggled with keeping or having people to fill the fly cars and that. How are you doing recruitment, retention? Is that how it's all?
Right now, we're in the process of, you know, we just had one individual resign as full-time to go do something else. You know, and then with the vacancy created by our EMS education position, one has been, you know, been filled, and we're in that process of filling the other one. Our challenges kind of have come in when, as this agency grows since, you know, August of 2017, these full-time staff members that have been here from the beginning or early on, you know, they're building more accruals to get more time off, more, you know, that type of issues. And our casual staff, I mistakenly, as Bonnie tells me, I refer to them as part-time all the time, but our casual staff, almost every single one of them is working another full-time job somewhere else or multiple part-time jobs. So sometimes it's challenging to get them to fill those spots. And that's where one of our biggest challenges of getting our staffing taken care of is filling, not the full-time spots, but filling in their time off for those full-time spots. We have, you know, we just had 7 people that just received their paramedic certification, 5 or 7. And all want to work full-time for us. So filling our full-time spots has not been very challenging. The challenging part is deciding who to give it to. But the challenging part has been trying to fulfill those casual part-time spots, getting them to work, competing for them to work, because they're working, unfortunately, the way the EMS does is almost all of them work for multiple agencies. And most of our casual people, like I said, are working full-time for another agency, and sometimes full-time here and 2 other part-time agencies. So we're competing for their time to backfill the time off. So that's been our biggest challenge.
Thank you.
It's also important to note in the people part that, other than about 6 weeks of this current year, we have had one of our full-time people out with an injury. So we have, again, struggled to fill that position with casuals too. So whenever anything of that nature should happen, as well as the time off, you know, it creates a hole for us, so, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a detailed question. Looking at Emergency Services 3010, in the detail on page 4 of 14, middle of the page, account 4589, print and duplicate. You've been spending $700 a year, and next year it's going to 3,000.
Yep. So that is, remember about 2 years ago, we printed those safety flip guides? We've exhausted the supply of those that we had gone through, and I've been getting more requests for those.
Okay.
So that is primarily to do another reprint of those, to distribute those safety guides to our county buildings.
Okay, thank you. I figured you'd have a good answer.
The transport has worked very well.
Yes.
Is there a need or have you examined expanding that, or is there a need for it, or?
I believe there's a desire to, but I know that I know mine and Tim's conversations, we really wanted to get a good, I don't think you can get a 1 year gives you a good data set.
No, right.
And there is absolutely a need to expand it. the hospital has been begging us for it. I believe when Brooks expands, there'll be or not expands, but moves and builds new. I believe there'll be an added need for that as well. Yes, there's a need to expand it, but I think we need a couple years of good data to really show where we're at with it and what those trends will be before we come here and ask for more.
That wouldn't have
That's a
been my
great answer.
answer.
That is a great
That's a
answer.
great answer.
I didn't expect that answer. It's very
I'm
good.
only gonna give you honesty, so.
No, I know. And I know when you introduced the idea.
The transport is doing very well. The hospital loves our guys, loves our staff. And I believe, and this might be a little, I think there are 100 over right now. I think the year-to-date, I know we ran 397 calls from the day we started to a calendar year. And I know the income that it has brought in has paid for itself.
Exceeded.
Exceeded that by about 100 grand, 70
no,
grand?
No,
I have to refer to the
a couple
expert.
of months ago, it was about 26.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I'm
a couple
way
of
off,
months
but,
ago. But it has, again, paid for itself, which includes, so some of our staff will go out to do a transport. And, their shift may be done at 5 o'clock, but they're still in Pittsburgh, right? So that ends up being overtime for them. But all flag cart income has covered all flag cart expense plus made money, yes.
And this was something that we had a concern of when we implemented this,
Right.
this transport. We were concerned whether it would be a burden to the county or whether it would pay for itself. And Noel and Tim were very confident that it could pay for itself, but we appreciate Bonnie's diligent work to keep track of this transport by itself to now be able to confirm that, yes, it is paying for itself.
Yes, it is.
So far. But to Noel's point, before we expand it, we want to make sure that it continues.
yeah. And the trend is, one of the hard things we're trying to do is we want to make sure that the staff that's working that is, I believe you take care of your people first and foremost. And to their credit, we work with them, is like sometimes they're on till 7 at night and there might be a call that comes in at 6:30 from the hospital that says, hey, can you take this trip to Hammett? Well, that's another 2 hours. That might be someone getting out late. And we like to work with the guys and say, hey, listen, is this something you can do? And sometimes they're like, God, I can't go tonight. Okay, well, we have to turn down a trip because of that. Or other times they're like, yeah, let's go. And we've had a couple like, listen, this is a very critical patient. I'm sorry, your plans are altered. You need to go. And that's been the exception and not the rule. And that's why we've got a pretty dedicated staff on the transport truck. So when they do have to work over, it's not an issue. And to that, we've adjusted the hours a little bit to reflect, we looked at that data from that last year going, well, it'd be better to, instead of starting at, we were starting at 8, now we're starting at 9 in the morning. And that seems to eliminate a little bit of the overage at the end of the shift. And again, it's just still, the biggest problem is not a local issue, it's still the issue of, there's a patient needs to go to Hammett, St. Vincent's and Erie, is finding a room for him. That's still one of the biggest challenges. So our local hospitals, UPMC in Jamestown has been on delay the last couple of days a lot because they can't get patients out. It's not that they can't get care there, it's just there's nowhere, these patients are acutely ill and need to be transported, but there's nowhere for them to go, and that's been one of the biggest challenges.
You mean like a rehab facility?
Even just the ICU or, just getting into any part of one of those other hospitals they're being transferred to. And that's what sometimes leads, is they have to, when all the beds in the hospital locally are filled, they filter down into the ER and they have to board them in the ER, which now takes ER beds away, which then makes it slower for the ambulance crews to come in and leave. And I know with absolute confidence that, our transport truck has helped decompress that issue many times at Westfield, where we do primarily most of our work, has helped to get patients in and out. And there's been multiple times they go there for patient 1, and as they're loading up for patient 2, the staff's like, here's paperwork for number 2, and we're probably gonna have number 3 when you're done with that. So it's been a very well-received program.
Seems,
Question? Comment, question?
yeah.
The transport, the billing side of that, is that a little more efficient, automatic? I know sometimes the billing out and about is a little more complicated.
It's a little bit different because there's mileage involved in it, so the billing for the transport ambulance is a little bit more robust than it is for a fly car. But it's all through the same company, the same PCR charting system. You know, they submit the same paperwork that a fly car would, essentially.
Right.
And it all goes to the billing company, but there's just a little bit more robust reimbursement with it because of the mileage transported and the payer levels for a ALS interfacility or a BLS interfacility are different than a fly car run.
Just to translate that a little bit, Noel.
Ambulance pays gooder.
Ambulances transporting patients between facilities is paid better than our emergency medical technicians dealing with emergency medical issues that we describe as on the street. So,
Correct.
If you have a car accident and you need help at the scene, we don't get as good reimbursement for that as we do for transporting you from one hospital to another.
That was, my question was that assumption, yes, thank you.
And that's Medicare,
You
Medicaid,
just
private
said
insurance,
that.
that's all of them.
He said what I was,
And the other side, and this isn't, although it's not its primary mission to run 911 calls and help, work with the fire departments, it has done that. I mean, recently there was, the guys were up here at the office, and then a local fire department was on a serious accident, and they had another serious call, and I called the chief, I'm like, hey, all your people are tied up, I got a full ambulance, do you want that? Yep, I do, we sent it. So it's helping to backfill some slots in there, although it's not its primary mission, it is doing that. While it's coming back from calls, it's run across car accidents and they stop and help, and, so it's been a little bit of a force multiplier for that as well.
It's still paying for itself.
Correct.
True.
Okay, Bill, anything? Good? You got that?
Just a last comment, and, I just really over the years have questioned the account in trying to make our revenue estimate to be correct. And so this year, I'm a little happier with our projections, and I hope that we can at least achieve that. And so this year, I appreciate the extra work that went into attaining that number, and hopefully we reach it. And, and we can continue to at least reach it, whether it being a loss for the whole department. I accept that because we value the service, but, we want to be budgeted correctly, so, thank you.
If I could talk about one more thing, please, that we didn't touch on, would be the EMT and CPR training. We didn't touch on that subcategory. So we are increasing our revenue. We are expecting to do 2 EMT classes with 15 students each, which will help us in that and hopefully make that be where they earn what they spend, budget neutral on that one. So that's what we're hoping for with that one, especially now with getting that EMS education coordinator. That was a big help for us, so. That's it.
That's money well spent.
Yes.
That helps fix problems down the road.
Yeah,
Very well.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think maybe at this time would be a good time to go over the amendments that were discussed, just so we have all the correct figures.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
you can make a motion, your
Yep.
committee can make a motion for those amendments.
Sam, do you have those?
Yes, I have the accounts. The one was a $10,000 reduction in account A 3989 2700.
And can you say what that one was?
That was the tactical body armor that was funded through capital, through the exhibit yesterday. And the second proposed amendment was a reduction, I believe it was 14,000 to account A 3989 EMS 3500. And that was to fund 2 full power stretchers next year, just reducing it down to the amount needed to purchase 2.
Okay. So can I have a motion?
I'm sorry, I do have a question on that amount. Can you clarify what the cost is per stretcher?
It's $49,000, I think, I can get the exact figure up in my office. I think it's 49,000 and something per stretcher with the required contract, maintenance and stuff for it.
Okay, so currently in the budget, there's $50,000 in that account number. In the underlying transactions, 8,000 of it is for the Physico something or other.
Physio.
Which would say there's, the balance would be $42,000 is in the account right now. So if you need $49,000 for the stretcher, we would actually need to increase that account.
Cause there's only 50, so if that Visio's 8 and 42, we'd have to increase.
So we have a quote for power stretchers from April of this year. And for us to get 3 power stretchers was $147,219. That was, again, for 3. That of course was a quote at that time when we were prepping for the budget. So, you know, I don't know what will have happened in the, 6 months since then, what would happen to that amount, but that's what it was when we asked for a quote.
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking at account number, if you look at your line item detail, you'll see that in that equipment account, 3,500, there's $50,000 currently budgeted. Do you need, of that 50,000 that's budgeted, $8,000 is for the Physico equipment? Do you?
That's from this current year.
If you don't need that, then I think the $50,000 that is in the account would need to remain. But if you do need the Physico expense in there, then we need to increase the budget.
I apologize, cause I guess I'm not understanding that part of it.
With the capital project for the power cots being,
Okay, so there's $64,000 there, correct, that's correct.
right, so we would need the balance to make that just for the purchase of the
So
two.
you're
Yeah,
looking at the two accounts.
Yeah, it appears the
Yes.
Visio is gonna be purchased, they have 8,000 this year, it appears that's gonna be a this year purchase, not the next.
So you don't need it next year.
Right, I apologize, I did not understand, that is true. That will be a one-time expense, which we expect to be, happen this year. It will
Okay,
not be.
So the capital account includes funding for more than one, a fraction of one, so between the two accounts. and
Yes.
then you
Would be
can
Yep.
reduce it $14,000, okay.
Now, Bob,
Okay,
motion.
need a motion?
A motion.
Marty? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's take a quick 5-minute break and then, we'll have a sheriff.
I've heard that all my life.
we're ready? Okay. Name and your title, please, for everyone who's watching at home.
Riley Unlow, Fiscal Supervisor.
Jim Quattrone, Chautauqua County Sheriff.
Okay. All right, take us away.
All right, I want to address a couple issues. I was watching the earlier presentations. I'll just get off. We're almost fully staffed. We have some deputy sheriffs that opening, hopefully we'll be able to hire them who are getting out of the academy. Our corrections officers, we're down a few. However, we have people in the process of being hired. Court officers, we're down a few, and likewise, we're hiring a few. Where we are short are our part-time deputies. We have none. I believe we have one, but works limited hours, very limited hours, and those are the guys who do our transports. What I really wanted to address, I still think this is the greatest profession that we have. It's a profession that perhaps we watch too much national media and see the negativity that's out there and fall into that. Those who are saying they can't wait to get out of it, maybe it's time to retire. But I will say, I think that's fewer than what people say. I read yesterday from a law enforcement wondering why anybody would stay over 20. I'm going on 36 or 37 and still enjoy this work, and I think there's a lot of people that are there. I gave each of you a little handout, Fostering Community and Law Enforcement Connections through the Science of Hope. We will be having, after the first of the year, Romero Davis will be coming in and doing some training for us. And this is with a goal of being able to not only attract employees, but to retain employees in there. So we are being proactive on that. So now I'll get into the budget. So we do see an increase.
Are you good, Dan?
That was good, thank you.
Good enough.
I know you want to get out of here early. It's,
We're right on schedule.
We have an increase of 8% overall in our budget. Through various, we have some breaking down the departments, some are decreases, some are increases, but total will be about 8%. And that 8% is primarily due to collective bargaining agreements and raises that are coming in through that.
What is 8% actually, number-wise?
That's why I have Riley here to give us percent.
Riley?
I'm sorry.
What does the 8% actually equate to?
$1,978,673.
Okay.
Our FTEs, we've had a slight decrease of a 0.12. We did add a corrections officer, which is fully funded through a COSUP grant, which is a federal grant. And we reduced one operations assistant. Haven't replaced him. He came over to the DA's office to do basically the same thing that was doing in our office, so we'll let the DA's office pay for that. Have not replaced that position. And I know Mrs. Swan said that the department head would be going through these. I'm likewise with Mr. Schmidt. We'll let the people with the expertise present the budget overall, but we'll go through each department within our agency in each, not each line item, but each area to touch on the finer points. Right?
Yeah. All right, our first is court officers. Overall, we have a negative $66,520 decrease in our budget, mostly due to personnel services. That's pretty much the court officers. We decreased our revenue. Most of our court officers are paid through OCA and some contractual items, and so we decreased our revenue to match our expenses.
Okay.
Our next is consolidated dispatching. Overall, we have a $216,269 increase in our budget. Most of this is due to a new premium that is in the collective bargaining agreement that was not in the previous bargaining agreement. And our retirement substantially increased.
Okay.
E911. It's a budget neutral department. We did decrease our contractual expenses due to some software maintenance we no longer use, so we removed it. And we also decreased the non-property tax items based more on trends and increased the use of money and property based on the schedule that was provided to us by finance. Public Safety Network, we have a total overall decrease of $14,744. Most of this is due to payroll allocations for various grants. We were able to cover some more of the health insurance and retirement on this one specific grant, and that was our large increase, was from retirement employee benefits.
Okay.
Technical services, overall, we have a $27,407 increase. This is part of the contractual raises, and then health insurance and retirement are big factors that increased. W911, this is also a budget neutral department. We reduced our contractual expenses in software maintenance, some obsolete products that we're no longer using, and we also decreased our non-property tax items due to the use of money and property increasing. The Sheriff's Department. Overall, it's a $908,866 increase. Starting off the top, personal services, mostly contractual raises. That's increased $284,763. We also increased our equipment for operating cost of Axon. We plan on paying for the initial cost of our Axon project through some various grants, our LETEC grant and some ARPA funds. And then this operating cost will be for the next 7 years. It does increase after the first year, but the first year is $150,000, and we are hoping to be able to apply for grants to pay for the operating costs ongoing. But we won't know until the grant comes out and we receive the grant.
And what's Axon?
Axon it's a multiple, it's our body cameras, then it will also be our car cameras, our tasers, as well as our virtual reality. And additionally, it covers, reduces the need for some of our servers because all the data, all the videos are saved in the cloud. So that's a lot of that operating cost is resulted in that. This is again, some of it's new. We've had the body cameras for several years, and the cost. I've always said the cost is offset by hopefully the prevention of civil litigation, lawsuits, and
It's the way that law enforcement is moving forward.
people walk in and we show them the camera, and all of a sudden we have no longer have the the complaints coming in when the reality comes through there. But again, I'm not sure how many, what the cost savings will be without having to use the server, but that is a definite consideration. The other thing that the new programs will do is we often have to copy over, listen to every recording if we're going to use it in a criminal case, and now they have an automatic dictation that they will actually print it out for us and monitor it, and there's a lot of factors in there that save us time and, again, resources, which is both in manpower hours and financially.
I just have a general question in the area, if I could, and it's related to that, kind of what you're going by with, you're saying the resources. We just heard from the district attorney's office, it takes law enforcement a lot of time to help provide the evidence and make sure that things are all dotted and T's. One agency that he didn't say he has issues with is the sheriff's office. So he either didn't want to throw you under the bus, or you guys are doing a good job. And are you staffed enough? You aren't proposing any increases as staff. Are you doing an adequate job? Obviously, you're utilizing some tools that are helping you and able to do that, but where do you stand staff-wise? And are you, your attention gets directed to other things, so it lacks in other areas, but is it generally okay, or?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think our biggest shortfall is right now is our part-time deputies and our transports, because those seem to have increased. As a result of bail reform, we're starting to see an increase in the jail population. We're also starting to see more transports to the courts. So our day shift is often, our full-time deputies who are often having to do transports. So that's an area that we're short. I always want to caution, I'm very appreciative of the support we have from the county with the sheriff's office, with law enforcement overall. Could we use more people? I think we would always take more bodies. But I have believed since I've taken office is I don't anticipate increasing the number of full-time deputies. What we have to be is smarter using resources and collaborating with other local agencies to do the services. The state police, Captain Hollins and his team have been very helpful. When we are short-staffed, we can reach out to them. And it's dictated what's going on around the state. They can't say, hey, we're going to put somebody here, but they're very willing to help us with the manpower that they have when they have it. So,
Mr. Chairman, I mean, just to emphasize what Dan said, I mean, it's absolutely great to work smarter rather than work more expensive. But what we heard from the district attorney is there's been a real sea change in terms of the pipeline process of getting from arrest to conviction, which is, as we understood it, put a significant load on law enforcement in terms of documents, filing, responsiveness, evidentiary stuff, just on and on. And of course, the bail thing is putting more guys back out on the street who commit more crimes. So it looks like from both the change in the law and the change in behavior that law enforcement writ large, district, from arrest to conviction, has got a bigger workload. And we would like to respond to that and help you with that if we can.
yeah, I believe, quite honestly, from the time I started in 1987, we complained about the paperwork. My dad was started in the early 60s. He complained about the paperwork. And it just continues to go. The difference now with the bail reform, the discovery reform, is the time frames. That's the biggest, we have to submit more and have it submitted quicker, which does have a big impact on how cases are prosecuted and when we can prosecute them. Many of the DA's delays are because we're trying to get the proper paperwork. So sometimes charging is delayed because we want to make sure we have everything in place before we place charges. So again, we're trying to work this, like you mentioned, smarter. For us, we believe it's just putting things in place and making sure we're following. Sometimes we just have checklists, making sure we're getting those checklists and making sure we're getting the proper paperwork submitted to the DA's office on the proper time. Thankfully, he has a good staff that keeps on us as well. They send us emails on a regular basis. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, New York State has, moved in a direction with the bail reform, the discovery reform. I would like to see court reform, because I think when we have court reform and we can get cases in front of the judges and get them resolved quicker, that would be a better solution than going through some of these other things. I mean, we've had people in our jail, for an extended period of time because of many of the delays. And sometimes that's on the defense, sometimes that's on the system itself.
Okay.
Other increases are software maintenance, and liability insurance, and retirement again, and health insurance. Some decreases in revenue we have our departmental income, mostly share fees. We did decrease this, by $20,000. We're trending, around, we'll be at 173, I think, by the end of the year. We're about $15,000 a month. So realistically, I thought we should decrease it. And for R221.hotel, this is revenue that we received from IT for shared services communications. They recommended that we decrease it, because their expenses are decreasing, so that was another decrease. Next department is pistol permit. Overall, it's a $7,024 decrease. We moved a .5 operations assistant position out of pistol permit and moved them fully into the jail. And some of our light duty deputies that have been working there in pistol permit when needed. And we decreased our license and permits down $10,000 just because we've gone through the influx and they're slowly trickling in now due to all the.
Yeah, it's pistol permit, now with the new legislation, they have to take a 16-hour classroom, 2-hour practical, and the cost is considerably more. I think previously people were getting pistol permits because they could. Now more people are getting them who are serious about actually wanting the pistol permit. So we've seen a decrease in the numbers. There's still quite a few coming in, but as Riley mentioned, we were able to decrease an operations assistant, and unfortunately we have officers that have been on light duty that have been over there. So we're hoping to get caught up and then be able to stay caught up after that, 1,200 that we got in
Yeah, right.
at the when the legislation changed.
Next department is the sheriff's grants department. Overall, this is a budget neutral department, and the biggest, there are increases. We did increase our federal aid up $591,866. This is in anticipation of the COSAP fiscal year 24 grant we just applied for, and also the COSAP fiscal 21.
What was the grant?
The COSAP,
COSAP.
the reentry hub.
Okay.
Mostly the COSAP grant. The COSAP fiscal year 2021 grant, we got an extension through 2025, just because the grant, we received the grant later on in 2022, so.
Just want to mention on the reentry hub, that's what you hear a lot about, but there's a lot of behind the scenes where we're helping with not just the hub, but they're reaching out, following up with those who have been released. We also are moving into a diversion. We're hoping a diversion project. We'll start with the sheriff's office and hopefully get other law enforcement involved in it. But when we have low-level drug offenders, rather than putting them through the system, we will hopefully be able to connect them with services so they don't continue to come through the criminal justice system.
Next department is the jail. Overall, our increase is $842,146. Starting with personal services, we're at $445,407 of increase. Most of this is due to the new premium for training, a training officer that was not in the previous collective bargaining unit, and as a new agreement as of 2024. We also increased our equipment for jail maintenance that needs to happen. We have a lot of items that are old, and we would like to budget for this hypothetically every year so we can replace things and as they're needed and don't have to replace everything all at once. Being more proactive on that. Most of this figure is equipment that we requested in the capital projects, and we were asked to move it over into operating budget.
What some of those equipments?
What is
Some of the equipment.
things? A lot of the equipment in the kitchen are, stoves and just things to prefer.
I have them.
She has them all
we
down.
have a skillet, a kettle in the kitchen, a boiler, just overall in the jail, some garage door openers, garage doors, emergency lighting, and a water softener system are some of the things that we had on the budget, in the budget for this year.
Okay.
And those garage door openers are not only for our sally ports, but they're also for our indoor rec We have garage doors that are up and down with them. And, you know, part of our reasoning here is too, it's what we discovered when things break, if we're not proactive, when they break, the cost to replace seems to go up because it's an emergency. If we can take some time and not have to always be on an emergency, we hope to be able to save some money. And some of these things, if they were in you know, some other facilities, they might last longer. But, you know, we're 24/7, you know,
use them all day, every day.
every day, you know, there's no break, you know, it's not, like this building gets used, you know, Monday through Friday, generally 8 hours a day. I know it's a little bit more, but the jail is always operating there, and, so we're trying to be good stewards of that equipment. And our maintenance guy, I don't know how he keeps some of the things running, to be honest with you.
The water filtration system's old, if I'm not mistaken, too, so
Yeah.
that's probably a necessity.
Right, and I appreciate, I can say that as Mr. Pavlik's been in a few times, and has taken us up on an offer and comes through, and has a little bit of a maintenance construction background, so he knows what he's looking at. I can honestly go through, our former warden took me through and showed me everything, so when something broke, he could at least tell me which direction to go. I didn't really know what it was, but the importance of like the water filtration, something. We want to take good care of those who are incarcerated, and want to make sure what we have is appropriate.
Some other increases in contractual or software. The biggest ticket item there is Kronos. It was formerly in the IT budget. It was not in our budget, and that was about 19,000. And employee payroll, we did increase this 10,000. We've been trending over budget for the last 4 or 5 years. It's just due to the influx of turnover. Right now, we're at 16,000 as of September. And then employee benefits, just contractual increases. For shared services down below in revenue, we increased our culinary contract. This is a contract through BOCES. And then our federal aid, our state criminal alien assistance program payment, it's been larger than previous years, so we did increase that as well. Next, we have navigation. Overall, it's a $26,714 increase, mostly retirement. As you can see, personal services and contractual are negative dollar amounts, and employee benefits is $34,000. The last department is Stop DWI. Overall, we have an increase of $45,559. This is largely due to the fact that I decreased the revenue of DWI fines. We have been working with our collections agency. I have, as of July, I've submitted a report from 2018 to 2023 of fines that need to be collected from this collections agency. We received our first payment in September. However, there's a lot of logistical things that we need to work out. Being able to prove that people actually owe this money, because in the collections agency, if they contest it, they basically make it a $0 amount and don't collect on it unless we have proof. Which is why I recommended why I decreased the revenue, in hopes that maybe we do a budget amendment later on in the year and increase that revenue because we've been collecting, but.
I thought you were gonna tell us because there's less people drinking and driving.
I wish I could say that.
Yes, I wish we could say that too, but I will say there is a direct correlation to what the district attorney was mentioning with his ability to get people to work and retain them. And some of these cases, and I didn't hear everything he was saying, but some of the cases they weren't able to continue through with the prosecution because of timelines and staffing and issues with that. So, you know, that does affect some of our fine money. We've been working with trying to get the collections agency going. Madeline, who sat here with the DA, she did a research, I think in 2017 or 2018. I'm looking at Ms. Swan because I know she was around. But
Actually, I believe she completed it in 2016, which was a year before I even started.
okay,
So
but
that
she
was-
did a lot of research and found out there was over $1 million worth of fines that were sitting out there, and there was nothing that legally that we could do other than go through a collection agency. So we contracted with the collection agency. Then we had to figure out how to get the money and how to figure out that process. We just, like as Riley said, we just got the first check. It wasn't a big check, but it was a check, so we were excited with that. And we're going to continue to try to stay on that. But she's also found out some other glitches that we're going to have to work out in to be able to work with the collection agency to further seek out those funds.
So those unpaid fines, obviously, we're concerned with the county, but would that affect local towns and that too? I mean, they're not paying the fine. Part of those fines go to
So
different jurisdictions?
I always get confused. There's fines and there's surcharges and some of them get paid. They have to pay them, but once they pay them, then they disregard the other ones, the money that comes to us. So I can't remember which is which, but I do.
You have to pay the state, I'm sure. though.
Yeah.
The state court
Correct.
typically gets paid.
Which it does impact because we end up having to send through our Stop DWI program, send the different municipalities.
We send 40% of disposed cases every quarter to each municipality. So that is a large percentage that we're sending out to these municipalities, and we might not be collecting. We might not
So,
be
yeah,
collecting
so-
40%.
So it negatively affects them. as well.
It affects the whole county.
Well, sure.
I'd just like to point out that this is an area that I've been upset about for many years because of our inability to receive the fines that are levied. So we've got convicted DUI cases, and they're not paying their fines. So I've been focused on this, and I know that Madeline had done some work on it. I know that Jen has done some work on it. And now Riley has picked up the ball, and I am just delighted that Riley is really digging into the details. And so I wanted to express my appreciation to Riley. The first check was received. Yay, celebration! More to come, right, Riley?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I couldn't wait. We asked the chairman to look at our budget, and I couldn't wait to tell him, we got our first check. I didn't really want to tell him how big it was or how small it was, but
We just got
we,
one.
we did tell him. So, because as he mentioned, I know that's been a pet peeve of his and ours. It's I worked DWI patrol for many years, and it is frustration. People need. I truly believe that our DWI enforcement since the early '80s movement, when I say our, nationwide, it's been effective. We've fortunately been able to reduce nationwide fatalities that were close to 60,000 at one time, and now down. We went down, dipped down below 10,000 nationwide, and we're starting to creep back up again. You know, is there a correlation between the lack of follow through and the lack of punishment and acceptance of responsibility? I would have to say yes.
Phil, you got anything? Marty? You guys? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we do unified courts while we're waiting on,
We can, certainly, yeah.
Olivia, maybe you can call him that and tell him to get on the giddy up? Yeah, he's gonna be on a short leash for sure.
Short and sweet.
Pretty
straightforward
Huh? No, Ned, Ned's gonna be on the show, that's what
But we'll have plenty of room for him if he gets here.
Trying to clear out some time. Jennifer Swan, Budget Director for Chautauqua County. Okay, we're going to touch on the courts, and it's really primarily court facilities. So, on the cover sheet, it looks extremely bizarre and very skewed that you're seeing a negative by 9,000% that it's going down. I don't think that's exactly a correct representation. It's just a very high number. But the majority of the decrease that you're seeing is actually for the first department that you're going to be looking at. I'm gonna skip right over the FTE pages because there's no staff that is dedicated to any of these sub-departments. There hasn't been in the recent past, so we don't even need to touch on FTEs. The first department that you're going to see is the indigent services for child custody. As many of you are aware and will recall, the county attorney's office did start taking that over beginning with this year. So there is no longer a budget in that particular sub-department, as the county attorney's office is taking on that work internally with their staff. The next department, or I should say grouping of departments, you have Supreme, Facility, and Surrogate Courts, as well as the Court Library. You're seeing a slight increase in your appropriations there due to unexpected electrical expenses during 2024. Budget increase in 2025 is due to liability insurance. The electrical expenses are basically building maintenance costs that were incurred in that particular subdepartment for that space. The next department, justices and constables, that appropriation budget is fees paid to municipal courts for actions on felony complaints. And we're keeping that the same. It's been running pretty much right on budget. Last but not least, we have the miscellaneous, and this is just primarily the court reimbursements that we get from New York State. This revenue is reimbursements for their occupancy and use of space in county buildings, and that's where that revenue is generated from. And we have pretty much, I mean, the activity has obviously increased, in particular since COVID. That increased trend is continuing, so we've budgeted a slight increase there as well.
Short and sweet. Cares or concerns?
I believe Mr. Pavlock has a
Sure.
question.
Ask that question, Dan.
Mine's into the.
I know it's not about the staff, so.
I was waiting for the,
I was
waiting
curious
for the
about
answers.
the
Dan.
That'd be interesting, right?
Are you fully staffed?
You got enough judges?
It's with the indigent services. Obviously, we were expecting a savings of 204,000 in this year's budget.
Well, so the timing of everything, when the previous county attorney was still in office, our contract with, I believe it was Law New York, was up for renewal, and their rates were significant. I mean, they were, I think, more than
Sure.
doubling. So at that point in time, we were already the majority of the way through the 2024 budget process. So we actually have not paid anything out for that in 2024, because starting in 2024, the county attorney's office is taking that on. So that's where you're seeing that reduction from 24 to 25.
And it is a savings.
Yes,
So the county
in
law office.
essence, yes.
So now, just in retrospect, the law office, the county law office, has accepted the work and is doing the work. They are expecting to put on an extra attorney to help cover some of this work.
Yes.
So we are seeing a little bit of this out of there into there. So I just want to make that
Yes.
correlation, because it is a savings here, but we are seeing a
It
little
is
bit of
still,
influx.
it is still an overall savings, just, in the cost difference between the one
Contractual
addition
cost.
and this cost, but he is correct.
Thank you.
And I'll-
And it is a good saving, and we appreciated the
100%.
law office. This year, we didn't incur the extra cost because they didn't hire the extra person, but they really are burdened in doing the extra work, so they need the extra person. So we are hiring to really cover this in-house. In a sense, and it is a true savings, because what we're going to invest in the extra person is less than what it was cost.
Well, and actually, the savings, it could be said that the savings is even greater, because had we renewed that contract, this $204,000 difference would have been more than double.
Sure.
If we kept that within the budget and we renewed that contract for those outside services. So that actually, the actual savings that's being incurred is actually greater than what you're seeing here.
Do you have a rough number what that savings is?
I don't
I won't
recall,
hold you to the
I do not
exact-
recall what Mr. Slagle had stated that renewed contract cost would be. I do have that in my emails somewhere from last year, so I can pull that up and email that number to you, just so
Just
that,
curious.
yeah, just so that you have a point of reference. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. It was an easy one.
Okay. Quick bathroom break if you need one.
We'll get HR on the FTEs.
right up.
That's why I was gonna call you, because I'm glad to see that you're doing something like that.
Thank you.
I think it's great.
All right, would you all introduce yourselves and your title for everyone who's watching at home?
Sure. Heather Abley, I'm a senior account clerk.
Derek Gregory, Assistant Public Defender.
Ned Barone, Public Defender.
Candace Peterson, Grant Specialist and ILS Data Officer.
Okay, Candace, you wanna take us away?
Sure. So it's a little bit of a surprise that I'm sitting in front of you today. But the good news that I have to report is that we are currently up to date on all of our vouchering and claims. And I just received an email today from ILS. There is one payment that it shows paid through the statewide financial system for ILS's email. And it says it looks like it should be paid tomorrow. And the voucher amount, our voucher amount is for $602,361. And there's a payment amount that's coming in just slightly over that. So he said there may be, another contract payment that is included in that as well. So that's in addition to the one that we just received, that was about $570,000. In addition to all of the smaller grant amounts that have come in. So we are completely up to date and current on all of our vouchers.
Good work.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
The thing, if I may, just to spin off on what Candace said, and I think that's most important, and for all you members that may have gone back to when we first became involved in the Indigent Legal Service program. And actually, I remember the pilot program was approximately about, it's close to 13, 14 years ago. But we had some rough spots just adapting to the different types of grants and requirements, as well as indigent legal services. It was new to the state, and so there was a lot of periods of time that we were behind on vouchering, we were behind on the distributions, and I don't really want to say behind because we were all learning the process, quite frankly. But as all of you may be aware, and you can see, it's evident by the proposed budget for 2025. We've got, because of these grants through Indigent Legal Services, we've been able to deliver a product that is by far as good as you're going to get anywhere in New York State. And I still stand by that. And I think that what we've got here in Chautauqua County is, and I am biased, but I think we've got an outstanding public defender's office that's completely funded and effective. And that's the key word, is in New York State, effectiveness of a public defender's office is really more than just representing the indigent on the alleged criminal charges. It's a holistic approach. So we've got a lot of responsibility to our clients, and a lot of different things are tied up with that. But most importantly, and I say this because of what Candace just indicated, and I can't take any credit for this, but these past 10, 12, 14 years, it's been a lot of ups and downs. And where we are today, as Candace indicated, we're current with every voucher, distribution, payment, everything. We're on top of everything. And all I can think of is a well-oiled machine. And that credit goes to these three individuals sitting here, Heather Abelli, Derek Gregory, and Candace Peterson. It's because the three of them, it's really a full-time job, is just staying on what's responsible with indigent legal services. And those grants, it's so much more, I've learned, than just providing some information to ILS and getting the grants distributed here to Chautauqua County. The database that's required by New York State and the other detailed information that ILS requires to comply with these grants is mind-boggling at times. When you're handling over 10,000 criminal and family court cases per year, which our department does, the database that's generated or the statistics that are generated, and it's amazing what kind of data you can extract out of one case, or at least what New York State's been able to do. And that's what these three and our department has to gather on literally a daily basis, take that information, put it all together and transcribe it and send it on to ILS. That's the only way we're making this work. So it's a complete team effort, and I think that's what I'm most proud of. And when I take a look at what our percentage increase is for the proposed 2025 budget, even though our caseloads are steadily increasing on about a 10% basis per year, our percentage increase is 0.2% over last year. That's the increase. And from what Derek indicated, and I do understand that we were able to, there's the contingency, I believe the county's using some of that contingency fund, and I guess that lowers that percentage a little bit. But still, a 0.2% increase in the local share for next year, I think is amazing. When you consider the number of cases we handle, how our department has grown, not only in the last, let's say, 10 years, but just over the last year. I couldn't be happier with the department and what we've been able to put together. And as a matter of fact, we've been able to keep open 2 local APD positions. I think that's helped out, according to Derek, again, with some of that percentage increase. But I think that I think our department is doing exceedingly well. Our caseloads keep going up, but we've had, I think that everything is being distributed as it needs to be, and we don't see any real slowdown with ILS or with the grants and funding. It's the other thing I just want to point out for the members that aren't aware, the bulk of that money is ear tagged for the criminal division. It always has been. But in the last year, we've received an additional $250,000 grant for family defense. That goes to our family division. And that's ear tagged just for the family division. So we've actually been able to add an attorney, an assistant PD, an additional, we have 4 full-time assistant PDs in our family court division. We've been able to also add support staff, investigative staff, and that again has helped us out tremendously. And from what I'm told by ILS is that amount of $250,000, they're looking to increase even next year. So that will continue to grow those funds. And I think that it's absolutely necessary in order for us to produce the product that is needed today, and that's effective representation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Candace, you want to take us down your list here?
Oh,
That's
yes,
really
sir.
all are you?
Yeah, we could,
Okay,
Derek.
That's really all I had, yeah.
Okay.
So you wanna start on page one, or,
Yeah.
so, as Ned indicated, the overall increase in our budget is 0.22%. I don't know, moving to page two, we're gonna have an increase in, 6 new positions, which are gonna be fully grant funded. We've, received some additional funds from, DCJS, the Division of Criminal Justice Services. There's 2 grants, Aid to Defense Supplemental and Aid to Defense Discovery, and that's how we intend to fund those positions. And of course, there's the understanding if those funds were to disappear or be withdrawn, those positions would most likely sunset unless the legislature approved local share funds.
Okay.
Derek?
Go ahead. Specifically, what are those 6 positions?
5 of them, under the Aid to Defense Discovery Grant, 5 of the positions would be Discovery Expediters. There would be three Discovery Expediters located in the Mayville office, 1 in Jamestown, 1 in Dunkirk, and they would be responsible for downloading and reviewing discovery and meeting with clients so that they could review their discovery. Under the bail reform and criminal justice reform rules, there was a discovery reform as well, and that is placed an extensive burden on both the district attorney's office to provide it and our office to receive it, process it, and make sure the clients have the information that they need so that they can participate in the defense of their cases. And then the other case would be a eligibility examiner to meet with the clients to make sure that they qualify for our services and to get initial information. Right now, we have our investigators doing a lot of that work, and we need them to focus more on the investigative responsibilities as opposed to the eligibility examiner's responsibilities. So, moving on to the next page, for 1170, our overall increase in our budget is $3,016. We do have a substantial increase in expenses, but those are offset by grant funds. Our overall percentage would be higher if it wasn't for the imposition of the contingency cost savings. We do continue to face challenges recruiting qualified attorneys to work for the office. I think that's a county-wide problem, so we have a number of positions that are open for purposes of local share. Right now, we have a couple of positions that are open that we should be able to utilize to meet the cost savings that the county is anticipating. Eventually, though, as we reach fuller employment, ILS wants us to have 32 and a half attorneys to meet the caseload standards. So as we approach full employment, at some point those contingency cost savings are going to disappear. Does anybody have any questions?
Derek, I'm sorry if I missed it, but did you indicate the duration of the grant that was received?
Which one?
This is the ATD grant?
The ATD grants, we receive a very small aid to defense grant that the county has been receiving for years, which is about between 13 and 14,000. I think it's 13,800. And then the Division of Criminal Justice Services just dispersed some additional monies
in two separate grants. There's Aid to Defense and, which is a supplemental grant, and Aid to Defense which is Discovery Reform. This is for the state fiscal year 2023 to 2024. Each of those grants were for $488,836. The same amount of money has been put in the budget for essentially next year. DCGS has communicated to us that they intend to ask for it for the following budget year, but there's absolutely no assurance that we're going to receive that money. So we're using the new money from DCGS to fund the 6 new positions. So if for some reason DCGS is not able to secure appropriations in future years, then those positions would potentially be subject to the sunset clause.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. The reason I'm asking is that you're proposing to spend nearly $170,000 on furniture for those new positions. So if the funding sunsets, the positions go away, but we've got $170,000 of furniture that we don't need.
Well, we put funding in there for the furniture. There's a number of unknowns. Number one, we don't know whether we're going to get any space to utilize the furniture. But the furniture is not just for the 5 positions or the 6 positions funded under the DCGS grant. The furniture would be also for the additional attorneys that we still need to hire. We still have, I believe, about 12 or 13 vacancies, and we have a vacancy for a paralegal. So we have probably 14 or 15 vacant positions, and those are funded under the HH grant, which I believe that funding is much more dependable than the funding under the DCGS grant. But we don't know whether we're going to spend that much in furniture, but we wanted to plan for any contingencies. Again, it's dependent upon getting the space, depending on hiring the people. That was just it's kind of a estimate.
So you wouldn't be buying the furniture quite yet. You'd have, once you have your hiring and your space and everything locked down, then at that point in time, you would expend funds to buy furniture?
Well, I guess the first issue is we need to get the space. Then, so if we don't get any space, there's probably not going to be any reason to buy any furniture. And the other thing is, the other issue with the DCGS grant is that, as Chairman Shagnon has pointed out, we don't know the length of this funding. It might not get renewed, and we were looking for one-time expenditures that would benefit the department. That, you know, we don't really want to hire people and then have to lay them off. So we were trying to identify one-time expenditures that would benefit the department to utilize some of the funding.
Buying furniture instead of people.
Well, we would really like the people, but again, the state hasn't given us any concrete guidance on how long this funding might last.
Question with the space. I've seen the space, and I know you're tight with the space you currently have with the current amount of people you have. So you said if you get the space. What is if? Where does the if part? Is it? Are you looking to? Do you have things in the works now that you're looking at space, or is it an unknown?
I think the county is aware of our space needs and is working to address those. I'll defer to Ned to answer that question. If I
may,
we've got, of course, we've got the three different locations. We have the main office here in Mayville. We have our satellite office in Jamestown and the satellite office in Dunkirk. And I can tell you, based on our staffing at this point, including all attorneys and support staff, regarding those three spots, we're Dunkirk, we're packed in. We've got no room to move, and that's based on what our needs are in out of Dunkirk and the north end of the county. Jamestown, we still have a little bit of room. We've got more than sufficient space for our Jamestown needs in the south end of the county. And we did that purposely when we set it up, because 70% of our caseload comes out of the south end of the county. And so, of course, the anticipated and the current staffing needs are much greater down there. And here in Mayville, the main office, we're currently, we've got, in some situations, 3 to 4 individuals working out of one office. That's how we've got no room to move where we are. And for example, we just hired a new attorney, and we put him out in Dunkirk because we had no room here in Mayville. I had hired another attorney approximately a month ago. We put him in Dunkirk because we had no room here. And then you're getting into, and what I try to do is locate, the difficulty is that our trial teams and the bulk of the work is all done here in Mayville because of the trial calendars. So the convenience of the main office and wherever most of the support staff is, we need to have more bodies here taking care of things. And we've reached our limit over on the first floor of the clothier. And the location, we've got to be here in Mayville. And where we're located is excellent because we have separation from the district attorney's office and the courts. It's just us and Office of the Aging. Now, again, we've expressed our concerns for more space here in Mayville, and it seems, after talking with Buildings and Grounds, the most cost-effective way for us at this point would be to just expand over into Office of the Aging. And I'm not trying to kick anyone out or move anyone out, but that was based on recommendations too from Buildings and Grounds. It'd be very easy for us to just assume some of that additional office space if we were able to do that and just expand our offices over. And we've talked to Buildings and Ground at length regarding that, as well as the county executive and other individuals up here in Mayville. And it seems like it would be the most logical. For example, I mean, we've got 2 new people we just hired as well, support staff, and now we're going to have to, here in Mayville, we're going to have to move a couple of the attorneys into the conference room to work out of the conference room. Then we're shuffling people. It's becoming difficult. The furniture or purchasing furniture we can put to use in any one of our offices. And believe it or not, at some point, like Derek indicated, we're going to have to fill those assistant PD positions based on what New York State wants. What we can do is a different story, but we've actually done really well in the last year in hiring new attorneys. And surprisingly, we've gotten good feedback, and that's because of the rest of the county departments working with us on that. But we can use it somewhere. We're going to have to use it. But we also have the family court issues. And you're aware of that, I think, because of the, some of the maintenance issues and things up on the hill and the problems they ran into, so we had to relocate the family court division for a time. And one other thing I just want to throw in there, it's not so easy for us to just perhaps share space with other departments. We have confidentiality issues. There can't be anyone but employees of our department in our department. We can't have, for example, someone from mental health sharing a workspace in our offices. That's a no-go. That's a complete breach of professional responsibility and ethics because of the confidentiality issue. We can't have anyone privy to or access to any of our office areas or our files, our databases, anything like that. And that's something that's a no-go zone. And so unfortunately, we can't like share space with other departments, or, you know, sometimes that may help out, but that puts a different level of responsibility on us and what we can do as far as the space goes. And it may not seem like much, but the effectiveness, it's hard to explain, I suppose. For example, let me just throw this out there, because this obviously is somewhat of a sensitive issue. But we've got, on October 15th, that's our next trial calendar. Every 3-4 times during the year, the Chautauqua County Court puts a trial calendar together, and it lists out every case. And on that trial calendar, I believe there's 7 trials, and our office has 6 of the 7. And preparing for the first case is the Hadi Matar case, which I'm handling. And if any of you are familiar with the Hadi Matar case, the trial preparation for beginning jury selection on that on October 15th is mind-boggling, just the jury selection part. The support staff out of my office, I require to put that trial prep together, requires, I've got over probably 12 people in the office working on that case with me. 12 people. And if I'm up here, I want those 12 people right there when I need them. There's no waiting till tomorrow if I need something on that case. There's no waiting to make a phone call, go pick up a file. In other words, I need people at our disposal. I know that sounds strange, but the next trial, let's say something happens and that doesn't go. The next one on there is a homicide trial. That's my case as well. Trying a homicide case takes all kinds of preparation. The number of people that requires. Everything, and if you come over to our conference room, you'll see the board with every one of our trials and the required responsibility, what has to be done. And everything out of there has to be done here in Mayville. So that's like central to our effectiveness. And it pretty much, and I know committee person Pavlak, you've been there. I think you've come to see our offices, which I appreciate, and I've always had that as an open extension. I wish more would come over. Just stop over and spend the day and come through and see. You know, and you can get a feel for where we're at and what we're doing, but you know, the space is very important to us, and it may sound simplistic, but you know, we need, in order for us to be effective, we need, our locations are extremely important, and the ability for people to have access to the office, to the courts, to every other main agency here in Mayville and most importantly, to one another. Because I set up everything out of our office is on a team defense, team approach. Every time we get a case in, I assign a team of attorneys and support staff to that case. That's the holistic approach. They've got caseworkers, they've got investigators, they have attorneys, they have a family court division. That's the holistic approach. And you can't just, okay, our investigators down in Jamestown, he works out of the Jamestown office. Or the caseworker, she works out of our Dunkirk office. That's not going to work when it comes trial time. That's the difficulty. So my suggestion was, look at, if possible, and this was based on what Buildings and Grounds told me. Josh came to me and talked to me. He said, look at, I know you guys are short for space. Why not just move across the hallway, get the additional space? And quite frankly, we have 24 people here in just our Mayville office. That's grown by 3 or 4 people in the last month. And Office of the Aging, I think they indicated, had like 7 people there. And it's the same, I mean, if we were able to take that space and convert everything over, it's not building a whole new building or adding on somewhere. It's just converting it to our office space as well. And we can fill up every one of those offices right now, including and that's our whole location then. And again, like Derek indicated, it's just it's not going to stop growing. And I know that we've got no guarantees on anything, but these funds, what I'm told by the chief defender meetings every year in Albany is, these funds and grants aren't going anywhere. They're just absolutely necessary as caseloads continue to grow. And so in order for us to be effective, I know people sometimes, can't rationalize the space or the cost or whatever else, but it really becomes absolutely necessary. So that's what we're hoping for, but we don't have an answer. I wish I did have an answer for you. I'm hoping, and I can tell you that the county executive, PJ, he's been tremendously helpful. He's looking at every different aspect. I've talked with Gib Taylor from Probation Department regarding our family court division, trying to work with him and his department, and we're trying to come up with a couple different things for the family court division. But that seems to be the most logical move. And if you talk to, for example, every time we open up an office space or we move, John D'Angelo, it's expensive with IT and everything and the wiring. But again, it's a limited, expansion for us, staying right in the same building. And the only other offices are DSS there, and DMV and election in the basement, and they're completely separate. There's nothing between our offices at all, but, so, I'm sorry, that's a long answer, and you maybe think of what you want, but, yeah, that's what we're trying to put together. And hopefully we can end up there, but I would welcome any of you to come and take a look, and you'll see what I'm talking. I mean, it really is the most logical thing to do. And I know we all don't always do what's logical, but even me looking at this thing, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And but again, I'm not trying to do it at the expense of Office of the Aging. That's why we've kept our mouth shut. We haven't said anything. We've kind of tried to just accommodate and do whatever we have to do to be a team player up here. with the other departments. But the reality is, we've talked about this, and it would really be a tremendous move for us. And I don't even want to say move, but an additional space for us is what we need, and that would make the most sense for us.
Okay, I have a question, and I know I'm new to the committee, but assuming the whole team and collaboration happens regarding the space issue, what are you doing as it relates to those 6 positions? Are you posting them as temporary? And would you be looking to the legislature to approve that $325,000 later, you know, for us to cover that? Do you have in mind some opportunities for reduction in other areas? Like, or what are you doing to ensure that that 325 is taken care of if you can recruit the 6 people?
Well, I'll have Derek answer the, with the money end of things, but I can tell you that, if we're able to, recruit those spots, we've been working with Chautauqua County, Personnel Department quite a bit lately, hand in hand on recruitment and things.
Okay.
We do, career placement, recruitments throughout the county. We also actually, we've got a couple coming up in Erie County. We post on several of the different internet or web pages throughout the state as far as job openings. For example, New York State Defenders Association, they run an internet posting of all career opportunities with indigent providers throughout the state. Erie County Bar Association, things like that. And so these particular positions, like Derek indicated, the research assistant positions are fundamentally, they'd be good positions within the county. I believe is it a 14? Or, I'm not sure, but they would be good paying positions. They would require certain qualifications, but a lot of the recruitment and advertisement for those positions are done right on the county's webpage. So for example, we just hired a clerk position that had to be filled just the other day. And I can tell you from talking with a lot of the applicants, most of the applicants for support staff positions like those, which would be a research assistant, they go to the county webpage. And have you ever been to the county webpage?
No, I'm really coming from a fiscal perspective. Like, how is that $325,000 going to be offset once, or should the grant award letter have a specific period of time when that job will be sunset? Like, how are you communicating that, and what's your
I see.
fiscal expectation? Yeah, I wasn't trying to understand the recruitment piece, just the fiscal piece.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can tell you, when we meet with any applicant that's funded through a grant, for example, Harrell, it's been up to this point, the HH grants.
Okay.
We're always transparent with any applicant, and I tell them, as well as anyone else, that, look, this position is based on New York State grant through Indigent Legal Services. And in fact, it's guaranteed for a certain amount of time, but there's always the opportunity or the chance that maybe these grants are terminated or no longer funded at some point. And at that point, the position is no longer available. So they understand that and they're told that. And that's something that they, certainly are completely informed about, the advantages and disadvantages of that, of course. And there's no guarantees we can make if the position's, not continued or the funding's not continued. But I'll let Derek talk about the offset or the monies, if you don't mind. Derek.
Right, and just kind of, I'm just curious about the award letter, what dates were on that grant, and what you have in mind should that grant run out.
If it should run out? Well, that's a good question. I don't, up to this point, those researches that, what we're using that grant money or would want to use it for is these research assistant positions that Derek mentioned. And those are really would be extremely helpful because when I went to the chief defender meeting about 6 months ago in Albany after getting this specific grant, it was explained to us chiefs that, look, at these grants or this money is earmarked specifically for anything or any spending your department would do regarding discovery. Discovery is somewhat of a broad category, but then again, it falls under a specific penal law section in the New York State criminal procedure law. And on every particular case, there's certain discovery that has to be completed and provided for by the district attorney's office. We then receive that, and now it's all digital. For the most, 99% of it is digital, which creates its own challenges, because I can't even begin to tell you how voluminous this digital discovery can be. So these positions that we would look to fill would be a tremendous help, because right now, when we get that information transferred to us through the discovery laws by the district attorney's office, we have certain individuals within our office that are earmarked for getting that discovery to us digitally. They've got to get everything downloaded. We have every database it's got to go to. There are different databases throughout the office that different attorneys have access to. Some attorneys and some support staff don't have access to certain database. Only some of us do. It becomes a complicated process. If at any time either the district attorney's office does not comply, not significantly, not partly, not 100% comply with providing to us all the required discovery, then the case will be dismissed. That's a huge, huge penalty. If my office fails to download or fails to convert that information that has been adequately provided, that's ineffective assistance of counsel. If there's a conviction at any time, whether it's a direct result or not of the failure on the part of my office to effectively download and get all that discovery, then Chautauqua County is being sued for ineffective assistance of counsel. And you want to see penalties and financial penalties and everything else rack up, that's when it comes. In my years as PD, chief PD, I've never had even one allegation of ineffective assistance of counsel. And I don't plan on starting now. But these positions, that's how important they are, or how important they could be financially as well, long-term. But these positions are going to be advertised through the county for we're going to also advertise through our different organizations throughout the state. New York State Defenders Association, New York State Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, the Erie County Bar Association, the Chief Defender Association. I've got about 7 or 8 agencies throughout the state. We will advertise these positions digitally so that they go out across the country. But most importantly, it's going to be Chautauqua County and Personnel Department who have done a great job, quite frankly. We've been getting a lot of applicants because of what they're doing on the internet and how they're advertising open positions. So, that's how I put. Now, on the offset or the financial, Derek, do you mind just answering, if you can?
Brief, just so you understand where we're at. This grant came in, these two grants came in on June 14th, where we were in the midst of the budget process.
Okay.
And the term dates of the grant are from April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, and they were part of the state fiscal budget from April 1st, 2023 to March 31st of 2024. So they're between the time that the New York State Legislature made appropriations and we actually received the grant letter, more than a year had already elapsed.
I see.
And so the grant award letters came in on June 14th. Our deputy director that works with our department, Sam Savuto, he was aware of these grants. And now, the award letter says that the expenses are supposed to be incurred by March 31st, 2025. I do have communications from DCJS, the Division of Criminal Justice Services, that we can expend the funds after that particular date, considering how late they were awarded.
I see.
So one of the expenses that we discussed was these 5 new Discovery Expediter positions, along with another legal aid eligibility examiner.
Right.
Those positions are currently at Human Resources right now. We don't really know if they're going to be called Discovery Expediters. We've provided a job description for the positions, and personnel is going to have to basically tell us where in the county's structure of positions that they fit in based upon their responsibilities. We use the Discovery Expediter position because the district attorney's office has a very similar position, but we're still waiting for the positions to be approved and graded. And generally and we would like to fill these positions immediately when they're available. And generally the process, as I understand it, that first they go to HR, and then finance has to sign off on them, and the county executive has to sign off on them. And essentially, as part of the budget process, the legislature is getting notice that we intend to create these new positions as part of next year's budget. And then with respect to your question about what happens if there's going to be an offset, as I've indicated, the legislature has appropriated the funds now for the next state fiscal year, which would have been April 1st, 2024 to
Right.
March 31st, 2026, and we're anticipating a similar award to be made to us next year.
Okay.
And then the Division of Criminal Justice Services says, as part of the governor's budget,
they're going to ask for appropriations from the legislature for the following year, but there's absolutely no assurance that that's going to occur. However, the trend seems to be that the state feels that funding the public defender's offices and essentially the law enforcement component, including the DA's office, probation, et cetera, is a priority. We would hope to receive these funds. Now, if the state legislature does not appropriate funds for the positions, then normally they would be subject to sunset, and we might have to lay these people off. But depending on whether or not the legislature feels that it's a priority or in some way they are necessary for us to do our function, and you know.
A question with this: do we have to use the new grant for new positions, or could we use it for existing positions already?
Well, the state generally the terms of almost all of their grant funds are they don't want you to use them to supplant existing programs.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of asking. If you actually recruit the 6 people, the likelihood of them continuing the grant is stronger than if you don't, right?
Yeah, the DCGS has clearly communicated to us that the purposes of the funds are not to fill the county's gaps in the county's
Right.
budget.
Yeah.
So that's the impetus for creating the new positions. But you know, if the funding goes away, then obviously the county would have to you know, make some decisions as to whether or not they would want to take any of these expenses on as local share.
Okay.
And the other thing with that too, if I may, is that what I've learned is the state, regardless of which agency is granting the monies, always indicates to us, look, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
You know, and so because if you're not using those funds or filling those spots or whatever, they're not, because all the grants are, for the most part, unique to each different county.
Right.
So it's not the same amount across the board for every county. We're getting these particular funds. Some counties aren't even getting these monies. The state determines which county they believe is in need of these particular funds based on their caseload totals and the specifics of those caseloads. And secondly, depending on the needs, how much are we going to grant them?
Right.
So then it's up to us, as Derek may have indicated previously, is if you don't fill those spots and you don't use those monies for what the state believes you should be using them for, then they're not gonna give them to you, and they're not gonna end up in being offered to you again, or your grant's going to be reduced proportionate to what you are using.
Right. It's a need-based grant.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. You answered me.
Hey, Derek, moving on.
Okay. So I guess, is there any other issues that need addressed for the sub-department 1170?
No.
Okay. So moving on to 1172, which is the sub-department that's wholly funded by the Harrell Herring Grant. Since the sub-department is fully funded by the Harrell Herring Grant, it's essentially budget neutral. It doesn't derive any funding from local share. Personal services went up 137.22. That's just the natural increase based upon inflation, CSEA contracts, et cetera. We had carryover from our prior Harrell Herring grant that we had used for equipment and other purchases, so that amount went down 40,000. Also in the prior grant, we had we had funding that we didn't know how to use, so that was put under other expenses. Other expenses decreased approximately 91,000 into other categories. That explains that. And then, of course, the employee benefits, the 77,000 is the natural increase for health insurance and all the other expenses for employees.
Derek, it might be helpful to the committees to point out that your Harrell Herring grant budget has to be reviewed by New York State Indigent Legal Services and approved. So they have already approved your budget for the grant.
That's correct, and we just received a new 3-year term effective on April 1st of this year, so.
Derek, so every year you have to submit them our budget, and then they have to approve it.
Well, that's the way it's traditionally been. When we were originally given the 5-year grant, every year we would prepare a budget. This year, we had to prepare a 3-year budget, so we already have a budget for the next 3 years.
Okay, so you don't have to do nothing then next year, they already have it.
That's correct, unless we have to make amendments. We could have expenses that we overestimated and other expenses we underestimated. They will allow us to make budget amendments to assist us to use all of the funds.
Okay, thank you.
And then the next page, of course, is the consolidation of the two sub-departments together, and that reflects the overall increase of $3,016. And then with respect to the individual budget categories, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you want me to go down the list by item.
Bill, you got anything? Marty?
I just, on page 2 of 5, with the building rent and lease, increasing 355%, that is including that $28,000 from the grant? I think it's necessary. Am I reading that correctly?
With respect to the building rent lease, it was originally $13,200. That was the amount that we were paying for our lease with Celebration Hall LLC for family court. The roof leaked, and presently we're not paying any rent because the roof leaked, and the facilities have now been taken over by the town of Chautauqua, and I believe the town of Chautauqua is in the process of putting a new roof on there. So at some point, we're gonna have to negotiate a new lease with the town of Chautauqua, and I think the anticipation is the town of Chautauqua may make a significant investment improving the facilities up at the Eagle's Nest. So part of that increase is actually could be potentially local share, depending on the increased cost for the family court lease. We're not allowed to use any of our Harrell Herring funds to support family court, and we have to have family court facilities. And due to the roof leak, again, we have an unknown there. So some of that money is in fact local share, and the way we derived money from local share is we decreased the amount for legal services, $18,552, in case we needed additional funds from local share to support the lease and family court. And then the remainder of the $46,800 would come from grant funding. And Mr. Barone's given you quite a discussion on our efforts to find additional space. We don't know if the additional space for the criminal division is going to require extra rent or some offset in order for the relocation of another department. So that's why that amount has went up.
Sorry. Thank you.
Dan or Bob? Bob, do you have any questions?
No.
Good. Okay. That's it then, thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry to drag you into my laundromat situation.
It's okay.
The phones are great, they do everything, and then the one thing you don't want it to do.
Yeah, it's,
you'll be
that's
hearing
my,
about it
yeah.
later. But you might be able to help with it then, if you want to listen to it.
Yeah, oh, believe me, I was discussing laundry issues the last few days. When you live alone with 3 dogs, you got to figure out.
You too. Thank you. Yeah, it's important. You were in on the day, but I didn't. What's a good day?
Done for the day, Marty, or you still got it?
Just call it.
A few phone calls. Job number 1.
You have to adjourn?
I'm sorry. Phil. Phil's looking at me like, hey, can we go? Can make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it? Okay.